Chapter 626. Something hot-blooded and exciting? What hot-blooded and exciting? When they heard Lan Shanggu say that he, Fang Yan, and Lu Shu were going to do something hot-blooded and exciting tonight, everyone had a bad feeling. Lan Shanggu's expression was so flamboyant, even a little arrogant. This was very different from his previous low-profile and forbearing personality. His tone was so calm and natural, with a sense of pride and confidence that he was in control of the whole situation. Until now, some people remembered that the Blue Mountain Club was under Lan Shanggu's name. He was the leader of this land, the king of everyone. If he wanted to make people unhappy, it wasn't a difficult thing to do. Lu Shu had been sitting there with an indifferent expression all this while. Even when others scolded him for being a disfigured monster wearing a wolf mask, or even a beast that was neither human nor ghost and lived worse than a dog, other than his pupils constricting slightly and the red blood vessels in the whites of his eyes becoming redder, he did not show any extreme reaction. He was like a bystander, a witness. Everything that happened today had nothing to do with him. But now, Lu Shu had the desire to speak. Lan Shanggu. His voice still carried a strong sense of mockery, as if he didn't like anyone or anything. He's not willing to be lonely. He wants to prove to Flower City that he's back, that he's the final victor. This person's personality has always been so radical. Fang Yan's sharp eyes looked at Lan Shanggu, who was standing in the middle of the crowd, but the smile on his face was somewhat calm. He didn't seem to care about what Lan Shanggu was about to do, and he didn't care about the results. Originally, I thought that we could wait a little longer, at least until the Longtu group becomes a whole in our hands, until we put all the meat on our plates, until we eat the roasted duck into our stomachs. Fang Yan replied softly, but, since Lan Shanggu feels that today is the best time, and this is the best place, then let him stand up and make a declaration. Let him tell everyone in Flower City that we're back. It was also to let those enemies, detractors, belittling people, and neutral onlookers understand this matter. We are the final victors, and we will soon rule over Flower City. Lu Shu looked at the side of Fang Yan's face in astonishment. This was a gentle man, a refined man, a man who would not say such arrogant words as "I am the only one in the world," even when he was using violence. He had never heard Fang Yan say something like that, saying that they were the final victors and that they were going to dominate Flower City. Needless to say, this kind of feeling was really quite exciting. Do you think it's strange? Fang Yan asked with a smile. There were a few accidents. The willow tree said, "This has always been your goal, it was an in on your way. You have been working hard towards this goal, but you have never said that you didn't want to become the ruler of this city." Fang Yan grinned and said, "I've never thought about becoming the ruler of this Flower City. What I've obtained today isn't the goal I've been working so hard for. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me for saying this. When I returned to Swallow Dock 3 years ago, I even wanted to go back to Flower City after the new year and quit my job as a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary. I wanted to go back and be with a very barbaric but also very beautiful girl. In the morning, I accompanied her to practice martial arts on the Green Mountain 1-foot platform. In the evening, I accompanied her to watch the sunset by Stone River. At night, I took her for a walk in the alleys of the village. I fed the cats and dogs. Whenever I had the chance, I would secretly touch her little hand. She dedicated her life to martial arts, so I wanted to dedicate my life to her and martial arts. I wanted to see what the human limit was, and how far the heart of Taiji could go. I wanted to cure Grandpa's leg. I wanted to avenge the old drunkard. Fang Yan turned to look at the willow tree and said, "Look, which one of these things isn't important? Which one of them isn't more important than becoming the ruler of this Flower City? It's too important, 100 times more important than me standing here today." However, God wasn't satisfied. He felt that this game was too monotonous and boring, so he kept adding plot twists and turns. In the end, he turned me into such a... Fang Yan hesitated for a while, then finally used a more appropriate word to describe himself. A yuppie, if given a choice, who would be willing to compete with others in shamelessness and shamelessness. Fang Yan looked at the willow tree and asked, "Did you remember everything I said?" "I did." The willow tree nodded and said, "Very good." Fang Yan squinted his eyes and smiled, saying, If you have the chance to see Yi Ro, you must tell her what I said. The power of words of love spoken in person and words of love from someone else's mouth are very different. The willow tree sighed softly and said, I suddenly regret one thing. What is it? If I heard what you said earlier, if I knew you were such a person. The willow tree reached out to touch the wolf mask on his face and said, Why would I want to be your enemy? Why would I want to be your enemy? Bad person? Yes, I was indeed a bad person at the time. But bad people also need friends. This is fate, Fang Yan said. Then my life is really bitter, the willow tree sighed. Ever since he met Fang Yan, his life went from the lowest point to the highest point, but did he gain more or lose more? This kind of question would swallow his heart every sleepless night. Lan Shanggu clapped his hands, and a group of tall men dressed in black surged into this independent courtyard. They skillfully blocked the 4 arches of the courtyard. Without Lan Shanggu's permission, no one could go out. There was a commotion at the scene. Many people were worried that these men in black would attack them. Someone took out a phone from his pocket, preparing to call the outside world for help. A man in black ran in front of Lan Shanggu and asked in a low voice, Young master, do you want to put away your phone? Lan Shanggu sneered and said, No need. Let them come. Even Lan Tingyue, whose head was bruised, crawled up from the ground, found his phone and began to call for help. In his eyes, the current Lan Shanggu had become a complete lunatic. Chen Guijing didn't call for help. If he did so, it would be showing weakness to Lan Shanggu. Someone like him, how could he show weakness like others? Chen Guijing laughed loudly, looked at Lan Shanggu and said, Lan Shanggu, why did you seal this place? You don't want us to go out? If you really dare to make us stay, I'm willing to be an unwelcome guest here. This place has good food, good girls, good scenery. I really don't want to leave so quickly. Chen Guijing turned to look at the young masters who were making calls and said, What? Are you afraid that young Master Lan will starve everyone to death? Don't worry, our young Master Lan is a famous person in Huaqing. He won't do things like murder or arson. If 1 or 2 of us really die, he won't be able to get away with it, right? Why don't you open your eyes and take a look? Where are we standing right now? This is the Blue Mountain Club. This is young Master Lan's place. If he doesn't take responsibility, who will? After listening to Chen Guijing's words, everyone thought that it made sense. Even if this was Lan Shanggu's place, he could do whatever he wanted. Could he kill or starve his brothers to death? Thinking of this, they were like balloons that had been filled with air, and suddenly became aggressive again. That's right. Lan Shanggu, what do you want to do to us? Do you want to scold us or kill us with your eyes? Lan Shanggu, I'm warning you, based on what you did tonight, we can charge you with imprisonment and restriction of personal freedom. Lan Shanggu, I've already called the police. If you're smart, hurry up and apologize to us. If we're in a good mood, maybe we won't stoop to your level. Lan Shanggu turned to look at Fang Yan, chuckled and said, Do you know why I can't wait to do this? These bastards just don't remember the pain. They're born to be despicable. If you talk to them nicely, they'll think that you're easy to bully, that you don't have a strong background, that I'd be letting you down if I don't bully you, so you came to please me, only by beating them up so that they remember that we beat them up, that every bone in their body hurts when they see us, then they'll talk to us nicely and maintain the respect they deserve. Chen Guijing's face was full of mockery as he said, Lan Shanggu, I'm standing here today, I don't believe. What can you do to me tonight? Lan Shanggu, I'm in Xinyang, I'm standing here today, I don't believe, that you dare to beat me up? Lan Shanggu, I'm Li Xiaohua, my father is Li Xinhui, if you don't beat me up today, you're my grandson. Pfft, I don't want a grandson like you. More and more people stood up. They were all young people and they all thought they were respectable young people. They were surrounded by Lan Shanggu, bullied by Lan Shanggu, and this stimulated their arrogance and courage. They were prepared to fight to the death with Lan Shanggu. Lan Shanggu didn't disappoint them. He waved his hand, smiled and said, Don't beat them to death. Thus, the surrounding men in black held wooden sticks in their hands and started to beat the heads of the young masters in the courtyard. Chapter 627. Lan Shanggu said, Don't kill, which meant that he was willing to bear all the consequences other than killing people. Since they got the authorization from the big boss, how could the tall and strong men in black not use all their strength? They waved their big sticks and hit the faces and bodies of the rich second-generation young masters. You dare to hit me? Do you believe that I won't find a few hundred brothers to kill you? Ouch. Help, I'm beating people to death. My dad is Li Mingliang, he is Hua Cheng. Brother, name a price, I'll give you money, I'll give you a lot of money. At first, those young masters were still stubborn and wanted to pretend to be heroes in front of these small fries that they didn't even look at before. They thought that Lan Shanggu was just saying tough words and didn't dare to really beat them up. When they were whipped by the wooden sticks, when their foreheads were cut, their cheeks were swollen, and some of their bones were broken, when the unbearable pain struck them again and again, they finally realized a serious problem. Rangoon Valley had gone mad. This kid really dared to deal a killing blow to them. Pa pa pa. The sound of the wooden sticks hitting the human body. Ah, the screams of the young masters and socialites. Whether it was the young master of the Zhang family or the young lady of the Li family, whether it was a man or a woman, as long as it was those guys who wanted to smash the door, they were attacked indiscriminately by the men in black. Of course, the women still had some advantages. Even those tough men with hearts of stone, they used a lot of strength when they beat these young masters, but when facing those beautiful young ladies in cheongsams or dresses, they still couldn't do it. Some of them were almost instigated by the pitiful eyes of those young ladies. Lan Tingyue was the person who understood Lan Shanggu the most. When he heard Lan Shanggu say, "Don't kill," he felt a sense of trepidation. That lunatic dared to drive a Hummer to run over his sports car in front of his house and almost killed him. Blue Mountain Club was his territory, what else did he not dare to do? He didn't believe that this guy would suddenly become soft-hearted or timid. So, the first thing he did was to lie on the ground and pretend to be dead. In the end, when chaos broke out, many people thought that he was really dead. The fleeing boys stepped on his back, and the high-heeled shoes of the ladies almost nailed a hole in his head. Fortunately, he noticed it and dodged in time. Even so, he was still covered in wounds, lying there motionless, as if he was really going to die. When a bald man swung a wooden stick at his head, Chen Guijing knew that Lan Shanggu was playing with them for real. This bastard, this idiotic brute, this... Before Chen Guijing could finish cursing, he was slapped hard in the face. Chen Guijing felt dizzy and his cheeks were burning with pain. He could no longer feel whether his face was still there. However, Chen Guijing was unwilling to admit defeat just like that. He was a high and mighty young master. Lan Shanggu, who had lost the support of the Lan family, was just a lowly little bumpkin. They were not qualified to talk to him on equal footing. Lan Shanggu, how dare you hit me? Chen Guijing covered his face, turned around, and finally found where Lan Shanggu was standing. His eyes stared fiercely at his target and said fiercely, "Lan Shanggu, prepare to pay the price in blood. I want you to die, I want you to die without a burial place." Smack! The bald man once again raised his rod and ruthlessly smashed it on Chen Guijing's head. Crack! The wooden stick broke into two, and Chen Guijing's forehead was overflowing with dark red blood. When the blood flowed to the corner of his mouth, Chen Guijing finally couldn't stand anymore, and his body fell heavily on the lawn of the courtyard. After Chen Guijing fell, the group of arrogant and despotic young masters and young ladies no longer had anyone who could stand up. Lan Shanggu waved his hand, and the group of men in black scattered in all directions with their wooden sticks. Once again, they silently guarded the four arched exits of the small courtyard. "My head is bleeding, I'm going to die, send me to the hospital. Mom, they hit me, I want to go home, I want to go home. Ouch, my leg is broken," wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves, miserable and miserable. Lan Shanggu passed through the group of people lying on the ground, and stopped where Chen Guijing fell. He squatted down and looked at Chen Guijing, whose head was bleeding and body was twitching, and smiled. "Young Master Chen, how do you feel now?" Lan Shanggu. Chen Guijing's voice was trembling, and he used his hands to grab the weeds on the ground, as if it was Lan Shanggu, and he was kneading them into grass juice. "No need to threaten me." Lan Shanggu patted his shoulder and smiled. "You've already been beaten like this. If you threaten me again, and I happen to be a narrow-minded man, what if I can't help but beat you up again?" Do you understand something now? Lan Shanggu smiled and asked. Chen Guijing clenched his teeth and didn't answer. He understood that Lan Shanggu was a mad dog. You already have the answer in your heart, don't you? Lan Shanggu straightened his body and stood up. He looked at the young masters and young mistresses lying on the grass and said arrogantly, You understand that Lan Shanggu isn't that easy to bully. Is that so? You just don't want to admit it? Do you think that I have nothing after losing the Lan clan's protection? Do you think that I will die for sure after offending the Jiang clan? Do you think that I, Lan Shanggu, am just a sick house cat that you can bully? I'm sorry, I've disappointed you. After leaving the Lan clan, I'm still living very well. I don't need the Lan clan's protection. On the contrary, I'm helping the Lan clan. I did offend the Jiang clan, but the Jiang clan couldn't suppress me. I, Lan Shanggu, am still standing here with my back straight. I'm not a house cat, not a sick dog. Whose house cat dares to beat you like this? Whose sick dog would do such a thing for the sake of the people? Lu Shu looked at Lan Shanggu, who was giving a speech in the middle of the crowd, curled his lips, and said sarcastically, This kind of flattering method is really shameless. Fang Yan laughed as he watched, as if he didn't hear what Lu Shu said. You're all hurt, right? Have you all learned your lesson? From this moment on, you all know who you can't offend in Flower City? Lan Shanggu looked at where Fang Yan was standing and said, My speech is over, now I will formally introduce a distinguished guest. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, I'll pass. I'm not used to such a grand occasion. Lan Shanggu laughed loudly and said, Look, our eldest young master doesn't even have the interest to talk to you. Only I, Lan Shanggu, am willing to put down my pride and stand up to teach you a lesson. Lan Shanggu walked to the wooden door that had been tightly shut and warmly shouted to the people inside, Flower City, Lan Shanggu, is Senior Luqi inside? Creak. The wooden door opened a little, and a green-clothed child peeked his head inside. Seeing Lan Shanggu at the door, he doubtfully asked, You saved us? That's really embarrassing, Lan Shanggu said with a guilty expression. Lan Shanggu said guiltily, The Blue Mountain Club is my business. It's an honor for Senior Luqi to come here, but I didn't expect that these gangsters would affect Mr. Luqi's mood. I'm willing to die 10,000 times. The green-clothed child waved his hand and said, Master said that ignorance is not a crime, and you didn't do it on purpose. Lan Shanggu felt that this green-clothed child was very cute when he spoke like an adult, so he cupped his hands and smiled, Young master, can you please inform your master that Mr. Luqi, just say that Lan Shanggu of Flower City wants to visit her and apologize to her in person. Creak. The wooden door was closed. Lan Shanggu rubbed his nose and bitterly smiled. Isn't this a bit too violent? You could just say that master is already asleep. Creak. The wooden door opened again. The child stood at the door and asked in a clear voice, Is there a person named Fang Yan here? Fang Yan was stunned, thinking, How did Mr. Luqi know my name? He thought about it and realized that he had never had any direct contact with Mr. Luqi. The only time he had contact with Mr. Luqi was in an awkward situation where he ran naked. Of course, even after paying so much money, he still didn't have the chance to see Mr. Luqi. Why did this little boy ask for his name today? Lan Shanggu was also stunned. He thought that Fang Yan's words were too insincere. He just said in front of them that they had never met and that he only admired her. Now that Luqi's disciple asked if he was here, it proved that they had been in contact for a long time. Lu Shu was suspicious, so he also had the same thought. Why did Fang Yan deny his relationship with Luqi in front of him and Lan Shanggu? If they were already familiar with each other, why did he say that they had never met? What kind of truth was he trying to hide? Could it be that Luqi and Fang Yan were lovers? Hey, I'm asking you a question. Seeing that no one answered, the child couldn't help but shout, Is Fang Yan here? Lan Shanggu turned to look at Fang Yan, and Fang Yan nodded to him. Lan Shanggu looked at the child and said with a smile, Fang Yan is here. May I know why you are looking for Fang Yan? Invite him in. Seeing that Lan Shanggu and Fang Yan were exchanging glances, the child's eyes had already shifted to Fang Yan. His small body bowed 90 degrees to Fang Yan and said, Master wants to see him. Lan Shanggu's mouth was full of bitterness. He wanted to see him but couldn't, But Mr. Luqi took the initiative to invite Fang Yan. Was he destined to be a supporting character? Fang Yan hesitated for a while, then took the initiative to walk toward Luqi's room. The green-robed child stepped aside and said, "Mr. Fang Yan, please." "Thank you." Fang Yan thanked the green-robed child. Lan Shanggu also wanted to follow behind Fang Yan to take a look at Luqi. In the end, the green-robed boy blocked him with his leg. Chapter 628. There were too many rumors about the music addict, so many that she became a legend in countless people's hearts. Or rather, a legend. Some said that a world-famous musician shaved his head and became a monk after listening to the music addict's performance. He said that there was no other music in the world with the music addict. Some said that a cancer patient miraculously recovered after listening to the music addict's music. She didn't take medicine or chemotherapy and lived until she was 101 years old. Some said that the blind opened their eyes when they heard it and the deaf were moved to tears. Some said that someone took off his clothes and ran naked in front of countless people after listening to the music addict's performance. Otherwise, it would be difficult to express his feelings at that time. Oh, the hero of this rumor was Mr. Fang Huohua. Fang Yan knew about the music addict for a long time, but he never had the chance to meet her. The music addict was not very willing to meet people, and there were very few people who could meet her. This was also the reason why Fang Huohua was a little excited when he heard that he could meet music addict and her friends at night when he returned to the capital. Who didn't want to have intimate contact with their idol? It had been 3 years since they parted at the Maple Leaf Club. The music addict's music skills should have improved, right? Fang Yan thought. Fang Yan thanked the green-robed boy and walked past him. He heard the sound of the door closing behind him, but he didn't look back. This was an antique room. Most of the furniture and walls were made of various kinds of wood. It was simple but not simple. Every decoration was unique. Every one of them had a great background and was worth a fortune. He couldn't see her, but he could smell the fragrance of flowers. Yes, it was the fragrance of flowers. There were roses, lilies, peonies, lilacs, hyacinths, and some unknown flowers. The room was filled with pots of flowers. The flowers were blooming, and their fragrance assailed the nostrils. It made people feel like they had entered a flourishing garden. The room was very big, and it was divided into 2 rooms. One was the outer hall, which was used to entertain guests. The other was the inner room, which was used for guests to rest. A screen that imitated the along the river during the Qingming festival painting separated the inner and outer rooms. Fang Yan stood outside and looked into the inner room. He did not know if he should walk in directly or if he should ask first. Just as Fang Yan was hesitating, a low flute sound came from inside the room. They were like goose feathers, like flying cotton, like fine threads, like clouds and mist, and they were so thin that they were almost inaudible. If Fang Yan wasn't so close, he might not even have heard the sound. Fang Yan's mind was instantly attracted by the sound of the flute. He released all of his mind and grabbed towards the sound of the flute. He wanted to get closer to it, he wanted to hear it more clearly. The harder it was to possess, the more he would miss it. The sound of the flute was like a woman, a charming woman that made people toss and turn restlessly. The sound of the flute gradually died down. Fang Yan's heart felt empty. He really wanted to ask if there was more, or curse out loud, F***ck, it just started and it's already over. Can't you let me enjoy it? However, he resisted the urge and waited quietly. He believed that this was not the end, but only the beginning. Sure enough, Fang Yan's guess was not wrong. Suddenly, the sound of the flute suddenly soared into the sky. It was sharp, loud, and resounded through the night sky. This time, not only Fang Yan could hear it, but the people at the door could also hear it. The people in the courtyard could also hear it. Those who were drinking could hear it, and those who were flirting could also hear it, as if the entire flower city could hear it. Fang Yan turned pale with fright. What kind of music had such a strong penetrating power and vitality? He knew that this sound couldn't be heard by the entire city, but the soaring momentum it displayed made people feel that nothing could stop it. Time, space, distance, and any other factors. Between heaven and earth, there was only the sound of the flute. Different from the previous two performances, the rhythm this time was very cheerful and joyful. It was like a girl in love, like a young man who lost his virginity, like an uncle who won a prize, like an old man who held the hand of Widow Wang at the head of the village. Everyone listened with joy, and everyone couldn't help but smile. The corner of Lu Shu's mouth that was hidden behind the wolf head mask slightly raised. Lan Shanggu laughed without a care in the world. Lan Tingyue, who had just been beaten, grinned. When he smiled, the wound at the corner of his mouth was pulled. Chen Guijing, who fell to the ground, also squinted his eyes and smiled. The blood on his forehead kept flowing, but his smile became more and more brilliant. Others were also laughing. Those men in black who had beaten people were laughing, and those young masters and ladies who had been beaten were also laughing. Everyone had thousands of reasons to be happy. Their bodies floated in the clouds, as if there was nothing in the world that should be worth worrying about. Fang Yan was also laughing. As he laughed, a horrified expression appeared on his face. He had discovered something very embarrassing and dangerous. His heart of Tai Chi once again spun for no reason. There was no danger and no consciousness. It just followed the rhythm of the music, like a wild horse that had run away from its reins. The sound of the flute became louder and louder, and the mood became more and more joyful. However, the heart of Tai Chi also spun more and more crazily. Fang Yan had a very bad feeling. He knew that according to this trend, he was afraid that the heart of Tai Chi would enter a state of out of control again. His dantian had begun to burn, and his body had become hot. It could be foreseen that the scene of running naked again was about to happen. It stopped at the happiest point, and stopped at the highest point. When the sound of the flute brought everyone's mood to the highest point, it suddenly stopped when everyone was laughing the most happily. The sound of the flute disappeared. There was no warning, and there was no gradual cycle. It could come and go as it pleased. It was like a capricious and mysterious girl. Someone outside cursed loudly. Fang Yan couldn't help but want to rush up and hug Lu Qi and kiss her. Thank the heavens, Lu Qi stopped in time. If she didn't stop at the crucial drum beat, Fang Yan would have exploded again. Fang Yan knew that Lu Qi stopped because of him. Our hearts are connected, and we can't control our emotions. A woman's elegant voice came from behind the screen. Fang Yan, I have been looking for you for 3 years. It ended just like that? Lan Shanggu said with a sense of loss. He loved tea and wine, but he wasn't usually interested in music. However, after listening to Lu Qi's performance, he realized that music was such a wonderful thing. It could move your emotions and temporarily separate your body and soul. It could bring your soul to travel beyond the heavens and soar in this boundless world. But why did it end just like that? Lu Shu frowned. He was obviously very dissatisfied with Lu Qi's unfinished behavior. Lan Shanggu sighed softly and said, one of Hua Xia's 7 addicts, Lu Qi, came to Huaqing, to the Blue Mountain Club, to the Lan Valley. I actually didn't have the chance to meet her. If this gets out, how can I go out and meet people? Tell me, should I knock down that kid guarding the door and force my way in to take a look? I've already said those shameless words just now, but aren't you still alive and kicking without losing a pound or two? The willow tree said with a face full of ridicule. Lan Shanggu touched his nose awkwardly and said, Brother Lu, I'm sorry. You also know that the Lan clan didn't handle things properly last time. This time, the old man in the clan pushed me to take the blame. Although young master didn't say anything, he was still a little unhappy. He has given me a huge benefit, so I have to give him some face. Isn't it what I should do to say good things about him in front of these useless people? How about next time you set up the stage, I'll do it for you, and you can also praise young Master Fang in front of everyone. I can't do such a shameless thing. Lu Shu said disdainfully. Hey, I say, old Lu, we're in the same boat now. Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? Say whatever you want to say, do whatever you want to do. What's wrong with saying a few words of flattery? Compared to the money we're making every day, it's nothing. Besides, what do you need to be shameless? Do you still have that thing? Lan Shanggu, Lu Shu roared. Alright, don't get angry at me. Lan Shanggu laughed and said, even if I get angry, you can't kill me, right? Tell me, What is young master doing with that woman inside? Lu Shu snorted and didn't want to answer Lan Shangu's childish question. However, he was also very curious. What was Fang Yan doing with that woman inside? At this moment, a middle-aged man hurriedly walked in. He walked to Lan Shangu's side and said in a low voice, "Young master, the families of these people are here. They want us to hand them over." "Are they very excited?" Lan Shangu asked with a smile. The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Very emotional. Many people brought bodyguards and said that if we don't hand them over, they're going to take them by force." Lan Shangu nodded and said, "Let them wait. Young Master Shonhua is also here," the middle-aged man said. Lan Shangu squinted his eyes and smiled and said, "Let him wait too." "Big brother." A young man wearing glasses stood at the door of an arched door and smiled as he greeted Lan Shangu and said, "Big brother, did Tingyue make you angry again?" Lan Shangu waved his hand and signaled the bodyguards to let Lan Shonhua in. Lan Shonhua walked in front of Lan Shangu and said, "Tingyue is young and doesn't know anything. Big brother, don't lower yourself to his level." Hearing Lan Shonhua's voice, Lan Tingyue finally had the courage to raise his head and shouted with a sobbing tone, "Big brother, quickly save me." Lan Shonhua scanned the ground and picked up a broken wooden stick that someone dropped on the ground and swung it at Lan Tingyue's body. "You bastard, always causing trouble. Today, I'm going to beat you to death here." Chapter 629. Lan Shonhua used half a stick to beat Lan Tingyue's face. Lan Tingyue's nightmare that had just ended began again. He clutched his head and wailed, begging for mercy. "Big brother, don't hit me, I'm going to die. Big brother, spare me, I know I was wrong." If there was a ranking list, Lan Tingyue could be chosen as the most tragic person in Huaqing today. Which heavenly king and great immortal did he offend? First, he was beaten up by his cousin. When his own brother came, he thought a savior had come. Was there a savior who would beat someone to death like this? Lan Shangu stood at the side and watched coldly. When even he felt that Lan Shonhua was too heavy-handed, he stopped him. "Shonhua, forget it. He's just a child who doesn't know any better. Who would lower themselves to his level?" Lan Shonhua once again raised the wooden stick and smashed it against Lan Tingyue's back twice. Only then did he stop, panting heavily. "Normally, I have taught him to be humble and cautious, to know his place and not to do anything illegal. Big brother, what wrong did this kid do today?" Lan Shangu looked at Lan Shonhua with a ruminating gaze. "You don't know what he did, so you swung the stick to hit him? Anything that can make Big Brother angry is naturally not a good thing." Lan Shonhua looked as if he was thinking from Lan Shangu's perspective. Lan Shangu sighed softly. "Shonhua, it's been a few years since we sat together to drink and chat, right?" Lan Shonhua nodded. "Big Brother has been busy, so I didn't find the time. It's not that there's no time or opportunity, but there's a gap between us." Lan Shangu said. Lan Shonhua's expression froze, then instantly returned to normal. He smiled. "Big brother Shangu, why do you say that? I've always treated you as my most respected and admired big brother. Something like a gap has never appeared in my heart." "Really? You're not secretly happy that I ran away from home? You're not happy that you've taken over the position of successor? You're not worried that I'll come home and take away everything you have now?" "Big brother, I've never thought like that," Lan Shonhua said with a serious face. "If I have such a thought, let me be struck by lightning." "Bullshit. Being struck by lightning is the biggest bullshit." Lan Shangu sneered. "If I could control thunder and lightning, I'd throw a bolt of lightning and split anyone who said such a thing in half. You know you're lying, and neither the sky nor the lightning will strike you. So, you swear as if you're drinking plain water, and you don't have any psychological burden?" Lan keeps his promise. "I can be honest with you. You occupied my previous position, and I felt uncomfortable. I asked Grandpa to let me take care of the Lan family, but he didn't agree. This was what I was thinking. Moreover, I can also tell you that if I want something, I will try my best to get it. I will do it openly and above board." Who doesn't have a bit of selfishness? He was a saint without selfish motives. Are you a saint? Of course not. Do you know what Grandpa said to me when I went back? Lan Shanggu looked at Lan Shonhua and asked. I wasn't there, I don't know. Lan Shonhua's mental fortitude was excellent, but under the aggressive attacks of Lan Shanggu he had a hard time defending. He once again experienced the ability and strange thoughts of his big brother. He asked me about Jiang Zhulu. I told him it was true. Grandpa was furious. He said that although tigers are fierce, they don't eat cubs. How is this behavior different from beasts? Grandpa also said that father and son killing each other and brothers fighting each other is a tragedy. He didn't ask anything of us except that we don't kill each other. Lan Shonhua, do you think you can do that? Lan Shonhua broke out in a cold sweat and said, I can do that. Let us brothers compete fairly. We won't regret it. Good brother. Lan Shanggu hugged Lan Shonhua's shoulder and said with a smile, This is a good man of the Lan family. Big brother. Lan Shanggu looked at Lan Tingyue lying on the ground and said, Shonhua, please take Tingyue back first. I still have some things to discuss with them. Big brother, don't be rash. When I came in, there were already many people gathered outside, Lan Shonhua sincerely advised. Lan Shanggu patted Lan Shonhua's shoulder and said, Shonhua, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Lan Tingyue's voice was mournful and shrill. It traveled out of the small courtyard and into the distance. Even the parents and elders who came to take their children home were shocked when they heard it. What kind of punishment was their children suffering inside? Thinking of this, their anger rose rapidly. A middle-aged man rushed to the black-clothed bodyguard at the arched door and shouted sternly, Let Lan Shanggu out. Say that Li Mingliang wants to see him. If he still wants to live in Huaqing, he better give me face. What right does the little thief of the Lan family have to be so arrogant? Let me tell you, if anything happens to my daughter, even if a strand of her hair is hurt, I will burn down his lousy Blue Mountain Club. Why is he so arrogant? A middle-aged woman bared her fangs and brandished her claws. Someone, charge in. Whoever can save Wang Ming, I will reward him with 1 million, no, 5 million. A middle-aged man wearing glasses and carrying a black briefcase walked over. He looked at the old butler of the Blue Mountain Club, Fang Hao, and said, Sir, I am Lin Zheng, a partner of the Tianxing law firm. Our boss's son, Mr. Qin Guijing, was imprisoned when he was spending money at your club. I want to understand the situation. First, I need you to guarantee Mr. Qin Guijing's safety. If he suffers any harm, we will pursue the civil and criminal responsibility of the Blue Mountain Club and everyone in the club. Second, what law did Mr. Qin Guijing break to be imprisoned by you? Third, who imprisoned Mr. Qin Guijing? Does the other party have the right to restrict the personal freedom of others? Fang Hao stood up straight and said, Lawyer Lin, please wait a moment. Our boss said that he will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. Lin Jing sneered and said, in entertainment venue imprisoning a consumer for no reason, this kind of behavior is already very unsatisfactory, right? Fang Hao bowed slightly and said, the boss said that he will give you a satisfactory answer. That answer will definitely satisfy you. Let's hope so, Lin Jing said. We just don't want this answer to make us wait too long. Otherwise, we won't be satisfied. Of course I won't. A clear voice rang out. The men in black split into 2 rows. A tall man walked out from the middle of the crowd. Lan Shanggu, he's Lan Shanggu. He's the bastard who imprisoned our child. Lan Shanggu, hurry up and release my son. Lan Shanggu cupped his hands towards the angry crowd and smiled. Good evening everyone, I'm Lan Shanggu. I'm sure a lot of people here already know me. Lan Shanggu, what do you want? Li Mingliang angrily shouted. Lan Shanggu looked over and smiled. Sorry for the disrespect. So it's Hall Master Li of 14K? Hall Master Li, I don't want to do anything, I just want to discuss a business deal with everyone. You captured our son and daughter, and you still want to discuss a business deal with us? Li Mingliang was furious. What if this business deal is related to your child? Lan Shanggu smiled and asked. What do you mean? It's like this. Lan Shanggu smiled as he scanned the crowd and said, Lan Shanggu had an important guest in the past few days. This guest is really expensive. Normal people wouldn't be able to see her. Lan Shanggu, what are you trying to say? What does your Lan Shanggu's important guest have to do with imprisoning our child? Someone became impatient. Because this guest is very expensive, so I wanted to give her the best I could, and that's exactly what I did. However, someone just had to jump out and cause trouble. Not only did she listen to someone else's song for free, she even went to the guest's room to cause trouble. Kicking the door, cursing, and even asking the guest how much the price is. You're all seniors here, please enlighten me. If something like this happened to you, how would you deal with it? Who is this guest? Maybe it's your Lan Shanggu who's spouting nonsense in front of us. If it was someone else, I'd be thick-skinned enough to borrow their tiger skin. Lan Shanggu really doesn't dare. Lan Shanggu smiled and said, one of the 7 addicts of Hua Xia, Luqi. Mr. Luqi, I know you definitely haven't seen her before. But you should have heard of her, right? Luqi? How could it be her? Luqi is in the City of Flowers. One had to admit that the influence of idols was huge. Many of the people present had heard of Luqi's name, and there were even die-hard fans of Luqi, although they might not have even heard the songs that Luqi played. How can you prove that she is Luqi? Does Mr. Luqi need anyone else to prove it? Lan Shanggu asked back. If it were you, would you dare to use the name of Luqi to do something like this? Lan Shanggu, don't use the name of Luqi to scare us. Tell us, what kind of business do you want to talk about? Lan Shanggu laughed heartily and said, isn't this the point? Your child went to kick the door and cursed. I have to give Mr. Luqi an explanation. You all know how powerful Mr. Luqi is. Even if you don't know, you should be able to imagine. Her fans are not just the few of you and my Lan Shanggu. If I don't handle this matter well, the Lan Shanggu Club will have to take the blame. So, everyone tell us, how can we appease Mr. Luqi? Li Mingliang thought for a while and asked carefully, is 1 million enough? Chapter 630. A person's name was like a tree's shadow. One of Hua Xia's 7 addicts, music addict. Even if most people wished to meet her, they would never have the chance to hear her perform. However, music addict was famous and had many followers. If music addict were to get angry, her fans would definitely tear those who dared to offend her into pieces. Furthermore, music addict had been famous for many years. How many resources and connections did she have? These were all factors that everyone had to consider. Li Mingliang was the person in charge of 14K in Huaqing. He was famous for his ferocious fighting style. Even someone like Li Mingliang came up with the idea of spending money to get rid of the problem. This proved that music addict was indeed very powerful. 1 million. Lan Shanggu shouted, Mr. Li Mingliang is willing to pay 1 million to appease music addict. I can feel Mr. Li Mingliang's sincerity. However, who is music addict? Pure as ice and clean as jade, untainted by worldly affairs. She pursues the pinnacle of music all her life. Mr. Li Mingliang, do you really think it's appropriate to use something as dirty as money to make a deal with music addict? Li Mingliang panicked. Everyone's gaze was focused on him. It was as if he had really used money to insult music addict. Li Mingliang wiped the sweat off his forehead and looked at Lan Shanggu with a flattering smile. Brother Lan Shanggu, what do you think is appropriate? You know that I haven't studied much and always like to fight and kill. Can you help me come up with an idea? How can I redeem my son Li Xiang? Is 5 million enough? Lan Shanggu strode forward and patted Li Mingliang's shoulder. Brotherly, since we're brothers, how can I not help you when you're in trouble? To be honest, it's not very elegant to talk about money with music addict. Who is music addict? Does she need your 3 to 5 million? Then what should we do? Li Mingliang grabbed Lan Shanggu's arm and asked. I have an idea. Not only can it appease Mr. Luqi's anger, but it can also be done in an elegant and humorous way. It will also become a good story. Brother Li will become a distinguished gentleman that people will talk about in the future. What idea? Brother, what idea? Quick, teach me. It's impossible for Mr. Luqi to accept money. There are so many rumors about Mr. Luqi. Have you heard of anyone paying her? Lan Shanggu looked at Li Mingliang and asked. Li Mingliang shook his head and said, No. Right? Aren't you going to incur the wrath of the masses by giving money to them? Lan Shanlai said with a smile. Seeing that Li Mingliang was about to panic again, Lan Shanggu patted the back of his hand to calm him down and said, Mr. Luqi has come from afar, shouldn't we, as the hosts of the City of Flowers, show our hospitality? What does Brother Valley mean? If Brother Li gives Mr. Luqi a piece of jade, a painting, a zither, and a flute, do you think this bad thing will become a good thing? Did dirty things become elegant things? In the future, when people talk about Mr. Luqi, they will naturally mention that Mr. Luqi was attacked by a few drunken youths in the City of Flowers. The youth's father felt very guilty and gave him a zither as an apology. Yes, it's the zither that Mr. Luqi is playing with now. Brother Li, think about it. If people think of you when they talk about Mr. Luqi, they will think of you when they talk about you and the zither that Mr. Luqi is using. How big of a face do you have to give? Li Mingliang's face was flushed and he looked very excited. He grabbed Lan Shanlai's arm tightly and said, Thank you, Brother Valley, thank you, Brother Valley, this is a good idea. Where can I buy a zither? I'll go buy it now, I'll go buy it now. Lan Shanggu glanced at the old butler Fang Hao. Fang Hao immediately stood up and said, Mr. Li, our Blue Mountain Club has a treasure house. It happens to have a good zither called K-Bai. Although it's not as famous as Green Damask and Jiao Wei, it's still a rare treasure, K-Bai. That's it. I'll take it. Li Mingliang said heroically. Mr. Li, this K-Bai is boss's collection. I'm afraid boss won't be willing to part with it. Li Mingliang looked at Lan Shanlai with a pleading expression and said, Brother Valley, please help me to the end. Can you help me settle this matter? Just think of it as me owing you a favor. Lan Shanggu hesitated for a while and sighed. Since Brother Li has spoken, I can't refuse your request. This K-Bai is indeed part of my collection. I bought it back for 10 million and also found a top-notch zither master to maintain it. How about this? I'll part with it for 12 million and let it become a wonderful story between Brother Li and Mr. Luqi. When Li Mingliang heard 12 million, his expression stiffened slightly. But when he heard that he could make a legend with Mr. Luqi with just 12 million, Li Mingliang's eyes lit up once again. That was one of Hua Xia's 7 fanatics. Luqi. Not everyone had the chance to gift a zither to Luqi. He, Li Mingliang, was a famous general in the history of music. This was something that no amount of advertising money could buy. I'm taking this K-Bai. Don't fight with me. Li Mingliang shouted. Brother Valley, I'll write you a check right now. Fang Hao walked over and said, Mr. Li, you can go and inspect the goods first. You can write a check afterward. Li Mingliang nodded and said, Okay, I'll go and inspect the goods first. What about my son? Lan Shanggu smiled and waved his hand. Brother Li, once Mr. Luqi calms down, your son will naturally appear in front of you. Good. Thank you, Brother Valley. Li Mingliang clasped his hands and turned to follow the old butler to the treasury. Brother Lan, I also want to buy a gift for Mr. Luqi. Can you recommend something for me? Sister Li, it's good that you have such thoughts. I'm just afraid that Mr. Luqi won't like ordinary items. Unusual items are too expensive. Of course it's expensive. The woman in luxurious clothing sneered. That Li Mingliang is just a hooligan. If he can give Mr. Luqi a 12 million K-Bai, how can our Zhu family not give something decent to Mr. Luqi? Brother Lan, don't think about saving money for our Zhu family. You have to recommend me a gift that's better than Li Mingliang's K-Bai. You have to make others mention my gift when they mention Mr. Luqi. Of course we have to mention Sister Li Mi who gave Mr. Luqi a gift, right? Lan Shanggu laughed loudly. Li Mi's expression was a bit shy. She said, I've heard Mr. Luqi's performance before. That song really belongs in the heavens and stinks on the earth. I've always thought that if I had the chance to meet her, how great would that be? Now that there's such a chance, our Zhu family naturally won't fall behind. Lan Shanggu nodded, thought seriously, then said, Mr. Luqi likes flowers. Every time he performs, he would place all kinds of flowers at his place of residence. I have a peony painting in my treasury. It was painted by a famous Tang Dynasty master. How about Sister Li take a look and see if you're interested? That's great. Li Mi nodded happily. Valley, I owe you a favor today. Sister Li, you're too kind. Brother Valley, can you recommend me a gift as well? Brother Lon, where's your treasury? Can I go in and pick a couple of gifts? Nephew Valley, you have to help me. My grandson is disobedient and offended Mr. Lichi. I have to show my sincerity to Mr. Lichi on his behalf. Did my son offend Mr. Lichi? What? No, this bastard, useless coward. Lan Shanggu pushed all of them to the treasury of the Blue Mountain Club and let them choose their gifts. As long as they picked one and mentioned his name, they would get a 10% discount. These people were all grateful. They all wanted to have an intimate encounter with their idol. Even if it was just a name, it would be good. Lin Zheng, a lawyer from the Tianxing law firm, coldly watched this scene unfold. After Lan Shanggu sent away the last pitiful helper, Lin Zheng carried his briefcase and walked over. He said sarcastically, "Young Master Lan, you're good. You used Lichi's name as a tiger skin. No one dared to argue with you about beating people up. You even tricked them into buying your junk that won't sell for 10,000 years. You established your reputation and made money. I have to say, this is really amazing." Lan Shanggu laughed and looked at Lin Zheng. He said, "After being with smart people for so long, I naturally have to learn to be smarter. In the past, I would never have done such a shameless thing. Later on, I found out that my friend not only did it, but it was also very likable. So, I secretly remembered his routine and wanted to experiment it on the spot when I had the chance. Today, I tried it out and found that the effect was really not bad. Mister, do you want me to recommend a gift for you?" "No need." Lin Zheng rejected him firmly. "They were fooled by you. I, Lin Zheng, wouldn't do such a stupid thing. I've already stated my purpose of coming here. I want to see my client and ensure his personal safety. I like dealing with smart people." Lan Shanggu nodded. He said, "Who did you say you wanted to see?" "Chen Guijing." Lin Zheng said. "Chen Guijing, the son of the big boss of Tiandu Real Estate." "Oh, so it's him." Lan Shanggu thought seriously and said, "You might not be able to ensure his personal safety." "What do you mean?" "Because I've already ensured that his personal safety is very dangerous," Lan Shanggu said with a smile. Chapter 631. Lan Shanggu, don't go too far. Lin Zheng's face was full of anger. "If anything happens to Lin Guijing, we definitely won't let it go." Lan Shanggu sneered and said, "I'm bullying you, so what?" Lan Shanggu, "Look, it's true that people who aren't from the same family don't enter the same door. I was wondering why I felt a little familiar looking at you. When Chen Guijing was scolding me, he was also very arrogant. But I beat him until his face was swollen. He lay on the ground and pretended to be dead. He didn't even move when I kicked his butt. Now you're playing the same trick again. First, you threaten me and act like I'm not afraid of you. Then, you act like you're angry after being slapped in the face." Lan Shanggu looked at Lin Zheng unkindly and said, "I'm not giving face to your Chen family today. What can you do to me?" Lan Shanggu was no longer interested in talking to him. He turned around and walked towards the small courtyard inside the clubhouse. Lin Zheng's face turned green and then white. He stood still for a while before remembering that he had to confirm young Master Chen's safety. He also rushed into the courtyard. "Sir, I'm sorry, you can't go in." The man in black stopped him outside. "Lan Shanggu, let me in or I'll call the police," Lin Zheng shouted at Lan Shanggu's back. Lan Shanggu turned around and smiled. "No need to trouble you. I'll call the police too, attacking a woman and smashing my private clubhouse. The police will be here soon." Lin Zheng's face turned green. He took out his phone from his pocket and started to make a call. Lan Shanggu walked next to the willow tree and saw that Lichi's room was still closed. He said, "Still not out? There's no movement either? If we stay here any longer, their children will run out and call us uncle," Lan Shanggu said. "Should we prepare the red packets in advance?" The willow tree looked at Lan Shanggu and said, "You've earned a lot of money by using Lichi's name, right? Jealous?" "Humph. I had no choice," Lan Shanggu said. "If I didn't know that young master had such a deep relationship with Lichi, I could have pretended not to know anything about this. However, since I already knew that he had a close relationship with Liqi, and Mr. Liqi happened to be wronged at the Blue Mountain Club in Orchid Valley, I had no choice but to stand up for her. It's rare for Mr. Liqi to come to Huaqing. We should ask her to bring back some local specialties. Pointing at the young masters lying on the ground in the courtyard, he said, "It just so happens that these idiots jumped out to make trouble, so naturally, their fathers have to make some contributions." The willow tree's face was full of disdain as he said, "You just want to make some money after showing off your power. Do you really need to make yourself so great?" Lan Shanggu laughed and said, "I knew I couldn't hide anything from Brother Lu Shu. Why don't we not give this gift to Mr. Liqi, and each of us will get half of it?" "I don't need this." The willow tree refused. "It's better if you take it alone. However, you are the one who took the money, so naturally you have to bear the responsibility." "What responsibility?" Lan Shanggu laughed and said, "Do you think I'll be greedy for this money? You underestimate my Lan Shanggu. This is a gift I prepared for Mr. Liqi. I'm sure Mr. Liqi will be satisfied." A small crack appeared on the wooden door. Lan Shanggu and the willow tree thought that Fang Yen and Liqi had come out, so they looked up in surprise. The green-clothed boy looked at them angrily and put a finger to his mouth to make a shush gesture. Lan Shanggu and the willow tree were embarrassed. They had never been shushed like this since they were young. Not to mention that they were being shushed by a kid who was so much younger than them. Lan Shanggu was like a child who made a mistake. He nodded his head, indicating that he would be more careful. The willow tree turned his face away, indicating that he had nothing to do with the person who spoke loudly. His voice had always been very low and gentle. Clang! The door was closed again. Our hearts are connected, and we can't control our emotions. "Fang Yen, I've been looking for you for 3 years. Liqi's voice was very pleasant, just like the music she played. The content of Liqi's words was very pleasant. Fang Yen didn't expect that Liqi would confess her love to him at their first meeting. "Fang Yen, I've been looking for you for 3 years. How much love and affection did she have to say such words to someone?" Fang Yen felt very painful. Liqi was a very good and charming woman. She was a woman who could resonate with him. However, he already had Yi Rou. He could only cruelly refuse her love. This was very cruel to Liqi, and it was also very uncomfortable for him. Fang Yen stood behind the screen and said softly, "We haven't seen each other for 3 years since we parted at the Maple Leaf Club. That time when I first heard Mr. Liqi's heavenly music, I was shocked. I wanted to find a way to meet the music master who could play such a music movement, but something happened, so I put it on hold for 3 years. When I was playing, I felt a little strange, as if I was being watched by a pair of familiar eyes. He understood every note I played and could empathize with the feelings I wanted to express. I was happy and he was happy. I was sad and he was even more sad than me. When I played the most exciting part, I could almost see him laughing wildly and wailing. I knew that I met the fated person my master talked about. That was my most hearty performance, and also my most emotional performance. I wanted to know what kind of person could enter my world and enter the world of the 12 barriers of sound I specially set up." After the song, I immediately asked my disciple Wanwan to go outside to find the fated person. Unfortunately, she was misled by the skin and asked the wrong person. I asked him to stand for a while, and he took the initiative to leave. He was also a rare smart person. I asked him to stand for a while, and he took the initiative to leave. This sentence conveyed too much content. In the eyes of Fang Yen, these two were the smartest people in the world. Later, I asked around and found out that an interesting thing happened at the Maple Leaf Club at that time. Fang Yen touched his nose and quickly changed the topic. He said with a smile, "I finally met him today. People who meet each other will meet again. This is God's will." This is God's will. Fortunately, your performance that day was so obvious. Otherwise, how could I find you in the vast sea of people? Why did you find me? To get rid of the knot in my heart. Liqi said. Knot in your heart? Fang Yen was startled. What knot in our heart? Fang Yen, come here, the screen is not for the fated. Liqi's voice came. Fang Yen was excited again. Li Qi invited him over. He could finally meet the legendary Li Qi. Fang Yen clenched his fists and walked through the screen. As soon as he walked over, he was greeted by a pair of beautiful and deep eyes like the stars in the sky. Her facial features weren't stunning. Her eyes weren't big enough, her nose wasn't straight enough, her lips weren't thin enough, and her chin wasn't sharp enough. However, when these inadequacies were combined together, the beauty they displayed was multiplied exponentially. The longer one looked at her, the more beautiful she became. She was dressed in a classic white robe that dragged on the ground. The hem of the white robe was embroidered with a crane spreading its wings. The crane was vivid and lifelike, as if it could break out of the dress at any time. She held a simple green flute in her hand. The green color of the bamboo itself had not faded, but it was smooth and bright after being caressed. It seemed that Li Qi liked this bamboo flute very much. It was said that Li Qi liked flowers, all kinds of flowers. Expensive, ordinary, bright, fragmented, and even nameless wildflowers on the mountain paths. As long as the music addict was around, there would be a myriad of fragrances surrounding it and the atmosphere of spring would be overflowing. Fang Yen stared at Li Qi with wide eyes and asked, "Who are you?" "I am Li Qi. Why are you so young?" Fang Yen couldn't help but ask the question in his heart. Li Qi had been famous for decades. In his mind, even if she was not a doddering old woman, she was still a very young old woman. It was because of this thought that Fang Yen did not look forward to meeting Li Qi now. It seemed that she was so young. A girl? A woman? This question is very rude. Li Qi smiled and said softly, "I am sorry. I know it is taboo to ask a woman's age. I am just curious, how do you maintain your beauty? What brand of cosmetics do you usually use?" "I don't use cosmetics." Li Qi smiled and said, "I just pay attention to my diet. I eat wild fruits and grains, use flowers to make tea and wine to drink, play the flute and the zither, and read ancient and modern classics. I am not bothered by external affairs, and am not tempted by fame and fortune. Naturally, I can stay young forever." Fang Yen squinted his eyes and smiled, saying, "If my two friends outside knew that I came in and talked to Li Qi about beauty, they would probably break down. Clothing, food, shelter, and transportation are the foundation of life. Is there anything more precious than these four things? There really isn't." Fang Yen smiled and said, "That is why we are talking about the greatest invention of mankind. Right? I have another question to ask you. As the Li Qi of Hua Xia's 7 addicts, do you usually feel a lot of pressure?" Li Qi pursed her lips and smiled again, saying, "Fang Yen, you are really an interesting person. You used a line from Tang Bo who touches the autumn fragrance. I have also seen this movie. I like it very much." Chapter 632. Many boys had tried their best to make an appointment with the girl they liked, but always lost the precious opportunity because the topic was inappropriate or because the goddess felt that you were a boring person and had nothing to say to you. If you did not look like Wu Yanzu or your father was not Wang Jianlin, they would not give you a second chance. Therefore, the first impression was very important. Of course, Fang Yen would not make the mistakes of those rookies. As the #1 Prince Charming of Swallow Dock, he had a lot of experience in picking up girls and being picked up. He knew what the goddesses wanted with just one look. He knew that they were not interested in this topic with just one small movement of the goddess and quickly changed the channel. Fang Yen did not want to talk about music with the music addict because he did not understand and that would expose his ignorance. Fang Yen did not want to talk about martial arts with the music addict because he did not understand and that would expose his ignorance. So, what should people talk about when meeting for the first time? Fang Yen thought about it and decided to use the old way he used to pick up girls. First, praise the other party for being young and beautiful and having good skin. Second, ask about the other party's health and maintenance tips. Whether it was a woman or a goddess, they would find it difficult to refuse others' praise. If you could compliment someone with a sense of hierarchy or freshness, it would be easier to gain points in front of the goddess. In addition, let the goddess take the initiative to talk. After throwing out a topic, quietly wait for her reply. After she had said a lot of things, He threw out a second question from what she had said. Everyone has the desire to show off. Leave the opportunity to show off to the goddess, quietly listen to her talk and give affirmation and approval in time. In this way, the chatterbox between the two was opened, and the relationship between them naturally became closer. Moreover, the goddess felt that you were thoughtful and not boring. The next time she wanted to show off and talk, you would be the first person she thought of. After Fang Yen used this trick, the effect was very obvious. The two people who met each other for the first time happily talked about health and movies. In an instant, they became infinitely closer to each other, as if they were close friends who had known each other for many years. A lot of people like Journey to the West, but I like Tang Bo who touches the fragrance of autumn more, because I feel that the characters in it are especially lively. Every time I see him draw, I feel especially excited, as if I'm the one waving the brush and splashing the ink. As the head of the 4 great talents in Jiangnan, Tang Bo who disguised himself as a slave for the girl he liked. When the Hua family was in crisis, he stepped forward bravely and stunned the audience with his spear. He almost catered to all the fantasies of women. He played out the story of Cinderella and the domineering president in the most unconventional way. Moreover, even though he knew that the domineering president already had 7 or 8 wives before him, he did not feel the slightest disgust. Instead, he had infinite sympathy for the domineering president in the history. Actually, Master Xing has another movie that's not bad. It's called Death Inquisitor. Although it's not as well known as the other movies, the interpretation of the human heart and the changes in the male lead's mental journey are very interesting. The biggest change in his mental journey was God of Cookery. The ups and downs of life are just like that. From health to Stephen Chow, from Stephen Chow to Hua Xia's movies, from Hua Xia's movies to the history of international movies, and then to the music in classic movies. Finally, the two reached an agreement. If Fang Yen was the male lead in a movie, Li Qi would accompany the music in his movie. This was something that Li Qi had never done before. Her music was independent and pure. She disdained to be associated with anything. It was a well-deserved protagonist. However, she agreed to do such a thing for Fang Yen. It was clear to see how far their relationship had developed. The child in green was holding the teapot and dozing off. When she closed her eyes, her master and Fang Yen were chatting. When she opened her eyes, her master and Fang Yen were still chatting. Fang Yen gulped down the herbal tea in the cup and looked at the music addict with a satisfied expression. He said, "People outside must think that we are talking about the multiple realms of music. At the very least, the topic should be the source of your creation and creative ideas. Are we getting off topic?" Li Qi shook her head and said, "I'm obsessed with music, but music is not everything in life. A writer's life is not always about writing, and an artist's life is not always about painting. Only by living can I create works that touch people's hearts. I'm just an ordinary person like you. I'll go shopping like an ordinary person, eat at roadside stalls, and buy a pair of jeans that cost 100 yuan. I'll try all kinds of lifestyles. But the essence of doing all of this is still for music?" Fang Yen asked with a smile. Li Qi nodded and said, "If it was before, I would think that I was doing it for a living. But now, I have to confess to everyone, I'm doing it for music. When there's a true intention in your heart, everything becomes utilitarian. It's all right. My greatest ambition is to make a good piece of music. I wish you success." Fang Yen, "What? Maybe I need your help," Li Qi said with a serious expression. Fang Yen grinned and said, "If it's anything else, I can help." "But you said music. I really can't help you with that. I've never had any musical talent since I was young." Li Qi's expression was solemn as she said, "No, you can definitely help." Fang Yen saw that Li Qi didn't seem to be joking and realized the importance of the problem. He looked at Li Qi and asked, "Are you serious? How can I help you?" "Wait until the opportunity comes," Li Qi said. "There have been several precedents for this." "Precedents?" "My master also met his fated person. So, they created the song, Su Wu Shepherds. After my master's master met his fated person, he created the song, Bright Moon, which is a masterpiece that can be passed down for generations. Your master is? The previous generation's Lu Qi Fang Yan's eyes widened as he asked. The title of Lu Qi can be inherited. The title of Lu Qi has existed for hundreds of years, and every person who has held the title is a member of the music gate. Each generation's Lu Qi will choose an excellent successor and impart all of his knowledge to her so that she can become the best musician and performer. This way, no one in the outside world can compete with her. Furthermore, Lu Qi is extremely strict when it comes to accepting disciples. If her disciple isn't skilled enough, she would rather let the position of Lu Qi remain empty than push her disciple away. Fang Yan pointed at the green-robed boy who was sleeping next to him and asked, "She's the next Lu Qi?" Wan is talented and has a high chance of becoming the next Lu Qi after me, unless an even more talented person appears in the music gate. This is what it means to be born well rather than learn well. Fang Yan sighed softly. So the title of Lu Qi has been taken up by people like you. Lu Qi chuckled and said, "That's exactly what it means to promote a virtuous person." Fang Yan thought, Mo Qingdi is one of Hua Xia's 3 dragons, should I inherit his title as well? Hua Xia's azure dragon Fang Huahua. That sounds quite impressive. I've learned another big secret, Fang Yan said with a smile. However, I also have a little secret to tell you. What is it? I'm afraid someone wants to borrow your tiger skin, Fang Yan said. Is it the Na Lan mountain valley outside the gate? That's right, Fang Yan smiled and replied. This person's thoughts are complicated and pervasive. I'm sure he won't let a great deity like you go. Lu Qi nodded and said, he stood up for me, so I owe him a favor. If he wants to borrow it, I'll lend it to him. You're such a kind person. Isn't he your friend? I don't know him very well. I wouldn't do what he did. Fang Yan immediately cut off his relationship with Lan Shanggu. Lu Qi stood up, walked to Gu Zheng in the corner, and said, I'll use a song called Hero to thank our friends from Flower City for their hospitality. The sound was clear, then became passionate. A hero cherishes a hero, sending him off again and again. The blue-clothed child sent Fang Yan out. Fang Yan smiled and nodded at her. This child will be the future Lu Qi, this kind of thing. It's definitely done behind the scenes. Lan Shanggu came up and asked, Did Miss Lu Qi invite us in? Fang Yan shook his head. Lan Shanggu's expression was full of regret, saying, I prepared such a generous gift for her, but I don't even have a chance to see her. She said to thank our friends from Flower City for their hospitality, so she gave us a song called Hero. Lan Shanggu laughed and said, So Miss Lu Qi knows me, she called me Hero. This was a man who was easily satisfied. Bang! A huge figure was thrown into the courtyard. Bang! Another black figure was thrown in. The black-clothed men guarding the arched door couldn't retaliate at all. They were silently thrown out like sandbags. Lan Shanggu's expression was gloomy, saying, The Chen family is too arrogant. While saying so, he strode towards the arched door. Fang Yan and the willow tree looked at each other, then they also followed. A middle-aged man wearing a flowery long gown strode over, casually waving his hand. The black-clothed men who tried to stop him fell to the side. 1 man and 1 horse, it seemed like they couldn't be stopped by 1,000 men. Lan Shanggu raised his sword and stood in front of the flowery-robed man, shouting, Who dares to break into my Blue Mountain Club? Get the hell out of here. I'm a love-struck fool, the middle-aged man said with a gentle voice. Lan Shanggu laughed loudly, saying, Haha, I've never seen someone call themselves a love-struck fool. Lan Shanggu's laughter slowly stopped, looking at the middle-aged man in disbelief, asking in a low voice, What did you just say? Who are you? I'm a love-struck fool, the middle-aged man said again. Chapter 633. I'm a flower addict. I'm a flower addict. Hearing someone introduce themselves like that in a public place, would you think that this person had just escaped from the Malin Mountain Mental Hospital? Most people were unwilling to admit that they were a flower addict, unless they were one of the 7 addicts of Hua Xia. Obviously, this flashy guy wearing a colorful robe that looked like he was draped with a painting of 100 flowers vying glamour might really be one of the 7 addicts of Hua Xia, flower addict Lin Fiang. Otherwise, which middle-aged man would hold his head up high and shout that he was a love-struck fool over and over again in front of others with his chest out in satisfaction? Naturally, Lan Shanggu also thought of this problem, so his attitude changed from mockery to awe. The 7 addicts of Huaxia had been famous for a long time, and they were outstanding figures in each field. A slight move in one part could affect the whole body. No one knew what kind of connections and forces they had. Moreover, these people came and went without a trace, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. They were not easy to deal with. It was better not to provoke them. Only fools would fight with lunatics. Who would be willing to be such a fool? Is it senior flower addict Lin Fuyang? Lan Shanggu felt that the Lan family was very unlucky tonight. First, Lan Tingyue was beaten up by him, then Lan Shonhua was ruthlessly ridiculed by him. Now it was his turn to stand up and accept punishment? Whether it was the music addict or the martial addict, they were both important guests of his Blue Mountain Club. As the owner of this club, he had the responsibility and obligation to treat these 2 masters. No, a master and a big milk. What? Lan Shanggu regretted in his heart. If he had known earlier, he would not have invited Fang Yen and Lu Shu to his Blue Mountain Club for a small gathering. Not only did he eat and use his own things, but he also had trouble knocking on his door. Of course, Lan Shanggu would never admit that he had taken the initiative to provoke and use others to establish his authority, such an immoral idea. It's me. The flower addict Master Lin was a little impatient. He stared at Lan Shanggu unkindly and said, I say, are you done asking? I'm done. Lan Shanggu opened his mouth and laughed, revealing 2 rows of neat little white teeth. He took the initiative to extend his hand to Lin Fuyang and said, Senior flower addict, your presence brings light to our humble Blue Mountain Club. I'm the owner of the Blue Mountain Club, Lan Gu. I've admired Senior Flower Addict for a long time. Senior Flower Addict, I happen to have obtained a bag of good tea from my place. May I have the honor to invite you to my place for a cup of tea? You don't have the honor. Lin Fuyang rejected Lan Shan Valley's invitation without hesitation. He didn't even bother to shake hands with him. Where's Li Qi? I want to see Li Qi, music addict. Lan Shanggu stole a glance at Fang Yen, who was standing at the side. What he meant was, look, someone is here to look for your old lover again. You brought this trouble upon yourself. What music addict? Senior flower addict, I don't understand what you're saying. Music addict, one of the 7 addicts of Hua Xia, the music addict, Shuiyun, who is obsessed with music. I just heard her playing in the distant Green River Valley. It's in this direction. Hurry up and ask Shuiyun to come out and see me. Lan Shanggu said with a sincere smile, Senior flower addict, I've long heard the name of Senior Li Qi, but I've never met her. This sentence was true, because Li Qi didn't even give him a chance to meet her. When saying this, Lan Shanggu glanced at Fang Yen with hidden bitterness. Fang Yen squinted his eyes and smiled, but didn't say anything. Before understanding the intentions of the flower addict, he was more willing to be a bystander. I don't know Mr. Li Qi, so I naturally can't ask her to come out. After a pause, Lan Shanggu continued, besides, even if I know Mr. Li Qi, she's the same as Senior Flower Addict, an honored guest of my Blue Mountain Club. How can I casually ask her to come out and see others? If Senior Flower Addict comes to our club and someone wants to see you, I can't easily ask you to come out and see others. Senior Flower Addict, don't you think so? A person should have a conscience. The flower addict didn't seem to have a good temper. He said angrily, I'm not asking her to come out and see others, I'm asking her to come out and see me. Senior flower addict, you're also a person. I've been friends with the flower addict for many years. It's naturally not a problem for her to see me. The flower addict raised his foot and rushed inside. Lan Shanggu hurriedly blocked his way. Senior flower addict, don't be impulsive. You're making things very difficult for me. Get out of my way. The flower addict Lin Fuyang shouted. The smile on Lan Shanggu's face disappeared, and his expression became gloomy. He said, Senior flower addict, are you Preparing to bully a junior? The flower addict didn't take Lan Shanggu seriously at all. He rushed straight to the center of the courtyard, glanced at the surrounding rooms, and shouted loudly, "Lu Shuiyun, come out, I heard your flute. An old friend has come from afar, don't you want to see me?" No one answered. All the doors of the rooms were tightly shut. There was no movement at all. "Lu Shuiyun, you can't hide." As the flower addict spoke, he used his nose to sniff the air. Then, following the smell in the air, he strode towards the door of a room. Standing at the door, he laughed wildly and said, "Lu Shuiyun, let Wan open the door. Otherwise, I'll have to do something that's not very elegant." "I smell flowers, roses, lilies, peonies, cloves, hyacinths, chrysanthemums. These are your old habits." Lu Shuiyun quickly opened the door. Creak! The wooden door was opened, and a blue-robed child stood at the door, staring at the flower addict Lin Fuyang with a displeased expression. He angrily said, "You're so annoying. Master is already asleep, why are you shouting outside? Don't you know that this is very rude?" "I knew I was right, Lu Shuiyun really lives here." The flower addict laughed loudly and reached out to touch the child's head, but the child evaded his hand in disgust. Wan, I haven't seen you for a while, you've grown a bit taller, go and wake your master up, tell her that Uncle Lin is here. Okay? I've said it before, Master is already asleep. She's already seen a guest today, so she won't be seeing any other guests. Oh, who is it that can make your master want to see you? The flower addict Lin Fuyang stared fiercely at Lan Shanggu and said, "That boy?" This guy was a jealous person, and he regarded Lan Shanggu as his biggest rival in love. "Whom Master wants to see has nothing to do with you." The blue-robed child said, "Go back quickly. I'm going to close the door." The blue-robed child finished and was about to close the wooden door with both hands. "Pa!" The flower addict Lin Fuyang put his hands on the door, not letting the child close it. He angrily shouted at the music addict in the room, "Lu Shuiyun, you're too cruel. We're old friends, and you don't even give us a chance to see each other. Do you really want to be so cruel? Let go of me." The blue-robed child desperately tried to close the wooden door, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't do it. How could he compete with Lin Fuyang, who was tall and strong at such a young age? Lan Shanggu's heart ached when he saw the little girl's small face turn red and the fine beads of sweat on her forehead. He said, "Senior flower addict, since Mr. Music Addict is already asleep, why don't you come back tomorrow? After all, it's not polite to disturb a lady's rest in the middle of the night." The flower addict turned around and stared at Lan Shanggu and said with a displeased expression, "You, get out of my way." Lan Shanggu grinned and said, "You see, you've insulted me again, I'll remember it all." "So what if you remember it?" Lin Fuyang's face was full of disdain, and very arrogantly glanced at Lan Shanggu and said, "Are you going to beat me up?" "Ha!" Lan Shanggu was amused by the flower addict Lin Fuyang's words, and said, "You're the flower addict of Hua Xia's 7 addicts, how could I beat you up? I have the heart, but I don't have the guts." Lin Fuyang snorted coldly and shouted at Lu Qi again, "Shun, you know me. If you don't come out, I won't leave tonight. We'll meet again when you come out. If you are willing to stay in this house for a year and a half, I will stand guard outside this door for half a year and a half." "Puchi!" Lan Shanggu couldn't help but laugh out loud. The love-struck fool, Lin Fuyang, was very unhappy. He angrily shouted, "Brat, what are you laughing at?" "I'm laughing at Senior Flower Addict's words." Lan Shanggu laughed so hard that he couldn't breathe. Mr. Lu Qi has been living in this house for a year and a half, so of course he has food and drinks. If Senior Flower Addict were to guard this door for a year or so, I'm afraid that she would starve into a dried corpse without food and water, right? "You bastard!" The flower addict was enraged by Lan Guanju's words and shouted, "Get lost! This is the 3rd time you've insulted me. I'll remember it." Lan Shanggu looked at the love-struck fool and said, "So what?" The flower addict didn't see Lan Guanju as an opponent of the same level. She once again shouted at Lu Qi, "Shuyun, if you don't say anything you'll what?" Lan Shanggu asked from the side. The flower addict's expression was conflicted. She hesitated for a while and didn't know what to do to express her heartlessness. Commit suicide by cesarean section? Senior flower addict, you mustn't do that. Lan Shanggu tried to comfort her. Even if you want to die for love, please don't do it in my Blue Mountain Club. I can't bear this responsibility. Ow. Hearing Lan Shanggu's words, Lin Fiang finally understood what he had to do. He took off the long robe he was wearing and took out a huge pair of scissors from his waist. Lan Shanggu and Lu Shu quickly dodged. They didn't want to be pierced by this pair of scissors. Fang Yan's eyes slightly shivered. He was already in a defensive position. If he dared to make any reckless moves, Fang Yan would beat him up so badly that even his mother wouldn't be able to recognize him. The flower addict raised the scissors and looked left and right. Those who were stared at by him couldn't help but take a few steps back. No one wanted to be the target of this madman. The flower addict finally chose a target. He waved the scissors and rushed towards the center of the courtyard. Everyone panicked and ran in all directions. Even the young masters who had their legs broken and were pretending to be dead crawled towards the arched door with all their might. I'll kill you all. The flower addict rushed in front of a cypress pine tree in the center of the courtyard and started to cut it with the scissors. Fang Yan and his companions were all stunned by what they saw. Chapter 634. Broken branches were all over the ground, and needles were flying everywhere. Kacha, kacha, the sound of the tree being cut was endless. The flower addict's posture was wild, and the way he waved the scissors was free and unrestrained. From his appearance, he really did look like an artist. But nothing good came out of Lan Shanggu's mouth. He looked dumbfoundedly at the flower addict Lin Fiang, who was about to fight with Pine and Cypress, and sighed, "This guy, is he a flower addict or an idiot?" Fang Yan was also speechless. Looking at the way he waved the scissors, he thought this guy was a dick-cutting maniac, cutting off anyone's dick that he didn't like. A group of people dodged here and there, but he just wanted to mess with a pine tree. This made their dodging meaningless. It was too embarrassing to do something meaningless. Right, I've always had a question. Lan Shanggu turned to look at Fang Yan and said, "Which idiots are there in Hua Xia's 7 addicts? Is there a guy named Idiot?" "I'm also curious," the willow tree said. Fang Yan smiled bitterly and said, "I've seen Dao addict Song transplanting seedlings, I've seen martial addict Ho Zhendong, I've seen music addict Shui Yun, I know there's medicine addict Qin Wujie, I also know there's tea addict Xinyuan Qiuo, I know there's painting addict Bai Lu, and this flower addict Lin Fiang. I've never heard of an idiot. But I've seen a lot of idiots in real life." Lan Shanggu glanced at the flower addict Lin Fiang with disdain and said, "I think this ranking is very inaccurate. If I were to rank Hua Xia's 7 addicts, I'd definitely add an idiot. This guy is obviously an idiot, right? Who is he trying to scare by waving the scissors and cutting the tree like crazy? If men are all like him when it comes to picking up girls, I'm afraid those women would rather like their own kind than any other man. Maybe there's a surprise?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "What surprise?" Lan Shanggu didn't like flower addict Lin Fiang, so when he talked about him, he naturally had a mocking tone. "Isn't this a surprise?" Fang Yan stared unblinkingly at the pine tree that Lin Fiang was crazily pruning. His face was filled with surprise and admiration. "What's so nice about this tree?" Lan Shanggu noticed Fang Yan's strange expression and looked over as well. He didn't find anything special. He took a closer look and realized that something was amiss. When he looked at it for the 3rd time, he finally knew what was wrong. He had actually cut the pine tree into the shape of a human, an outstanding and beautiful woman. There was a faint smile on her face. Her appearance was gentle, but there was an unapproachable arrogance in her bones. It was so clear as if he could touch it. Logically speaking, floral art and gardening were only similar in form or spirit. It was impossible for you to see specific things like eyes, mouth, eyebrows, and so on. However, you can feel their existence from the works of the anthomaniac. It was no longer a work of art. It was a real person, a person with spirit and flesh. "What's going on?" Lan Shanggu asked in surprise. Am I the only one who saw a beauty? He cut the tree into a beauty? That's Luqi, Fang Yan said with infinite admiration. He had seen Luqi before and knew how similar the expression and temperament of the person under Flower Addict's hands were. Only when he remembered a person in his heart could he easily show her. He gave her soul, flesh, and everything beautiful in the world. The Luqi under Flower Addict's hands was very similar to a real person, but even more beautiful. For example, Luqi's slightly raised head arrogantly. This kind of thing was hidden deep in his bones. However, he had skillfully dug it out and displayed it incisively and vividly. Flower Addict was indeed a flower addict. I didn't know Mr. Luqi was so beautiful. Lan Shanggu looked at Luqi's appearance obsessively. He couldn't see the real person in real life, so it was good to see it artificially. I thought it was an old man. However, isn't this flower addict a bit too powerful? With just a pair of scissors in his hand, he could turn an ordinary tree into the appearance of the woman he likes. Such a peerless skill of picking up girls is unstoppable. Who can compete with him? There are 4 realms of flower art. The first is form resemblance, which only takes the form. The second is spirit resemblance, which has both form and spirit. The third is ghost acts, which can only be obtained by a great master. The fourth is divine craft, which is rare in the world, like a god descending to earth. I have learned flower art for more than 10 years, but I only reached the level of spirit resemblance. And this is my best performance. Fang Yan said with a sigh. What about him? Lan Shanggu pointed at flower addict Lin Fiang, who was still doing the last bit of trimming, and said, which realm is flower addict at? Because he had seen flower addict's ability, Lan Shanggu's attitude towards him was much more respectful. He didn't choose any special materials, just a pair of scissors as a tool. He casually trimmed a pine tree in the yard, and the work he produced was already in the ghost axe realm. This is a rare genius in the flower art world. He truly deserves the title of flower addict. Fang Yan pointed at the pine tree in front of flower addict Lin Fiang and said, a music addict cut by flower addict. This scene can become the treasure of your Blue Mountain Club and ensure that your Blue Mountain Club will not decline for 100 years. Lan Shanggu thought about it and also became happy. That's right, Flower Addict used the pine tree in his Blue Mountain Club to cut a music addict. Then, according to the property law, this music addict naturally belonged to him. If this matter was accidentally spread, wouldn't it attract countless celebrities in watching, and even guests from all over the country to come and watch? At that time, his Blue Mountain Club would be crowded, and because of this music addict, his Blue Mountain Club would complete an upgrade and become the top club in the world. But soon, Lan Shanggu couldn't be happy anymore, because he thought of an extremely serious problem. He looked at Fang Yan and said, the pine tree will grow. Fang Yan nodded and said, yes. As long as it is still alive, it will continue to grow. If it continues to grow, then this music addict, will it grow to nothing? That's for sure. Fang Yan nodded. The respectability of gardening also lies in its changes. As long as it is a living gardening, it will change according to the 4 seasons, so it's normal for the music addict to disappear. But don't worry, even if the music addict is gone, the story of the flower addict and the music addict will still exist. 30 years later, as long as a guest comes over, you can point at the towering pine tree and say that the flower addict used this pine tree to cut out a music addict, and everyone will still be very grateful. Lan Shanggu shook his head and said, that's too much. If we can't see that it's a music addict, who would be willing to admit that it's a music addict? There's another way. What is it? Fang Yan pointed at the flower addict and said, think of a way to make him stay, and let him trim you every day. That's a good idea. Lan Shanggu said happily. The flower addict waved the scissors to cut off some minor details, and then stood in front of the music addict with a sad face. Shui Shuiyun, are you really this cruel? You rejected me again and again, and now you won't even give me a chance to meet. He reached out his hand and gently touched the face of the music addict, and said with a sad voice, tell me, what do you dislike about me? I'll change. I'll change, okay? You are a burning flame, so I'm willing to be a moth flying into the flame. Even if I'm smashed to pieces, even if I'm beyond redemption, even if I'm burned to ashes, I won't give up the chance to hold your hand in this life. Why is love so hurtful, so heartbreaking? Pfft. This time, not only Fang Yen couldn't help but laugh, but even the willow tree's mask made a strange sound. Who is it? Which bastard is laughing? The flower addict was so angry that he roared at Fang Yen and Lan Shanggu. This time, Lan Shanggu was able to hold back his laughter. He stared at Fang Yen and the willow tree with righteous indignation, as if he was ashamed to be associated with them, and said, "Senior flower addict is deeply in love with senior music addict. Even a stone-hearted person would be moved by this scene. I just don't understand. At such a sad moment, how can you still laugh?" Lan Shanggu strode towards the flower addict Lin Fiang, reached out his hand and patted his shoulder, and said, "Senior flower addict, don't be sad. I believe that sincerity can move metal and stone. As long as Senior Flower Addict continues to persevere, you will definitely be able to move Mr. Music Addict's heart, and he will be willing to hold hands with you until old age and become a legend in the world. Aren't the Flower Addict and Music Addict meant to be a match made in heaven?" After saying this, he glanced at Fang Yen guiltily. He didn't know what the relationship between them was. Would he be angry at what he said? The flower addict Lin Fiang nodded repeatedly and said, "Yes, yes. I am the flower addict. She is the music addict. She likes flowers, I also like flowers. We should be a good couple. You just said that you are willing to guard the door of this room. Whenever Mr. Music Addict comes out, then you will meet again. If she is willing to stay in this room for a year and a half, you will guard the door for half a year." The flower addict looked at Lan Shanggu with a face full of confusion and said, "Did I say that? Why are you asking this? What do you want? Do you want to laugh at me again?" No. I definitely didn't mean that." Lan Shanggu waved his hand repeatedly. "I just realized that I have made a huge mistake. I shouldn't belittle other people's love. All the infatuated people in the world deserve our respect. Senior flower addict, you can just stay here peacefully. I will reserve a room for you next to Mr. Music Addict. You will live next to each other. Maybe you will see each other every day." "Really?" The flower addict was overjoyed. "That's really great." Lan Shanggu enthusiastically pointed at the flowers and grass in his yard and said, "The flowers, grass, trees, and stones in this yard are all yours, Mr. Flower Addict. You can cut whatever you want and carve whatever you want. If it's not enough, I'll bring more from outside." Chapter 635. The flower addict was overjoyed. She excitedly pulled Lan Gudu's hand and thanked him. Fang Yen sighed silently. Lan Gudu must have a bad conscience to lie to such an idiot. While the flower addict was holding Lan Gudu's hand and expressing her gratitude, and Lan Gudu kept describing to her the happy life of living with Luchi in the Blue Mountain Club, the wooden door of Luchi's private room was finally pushed open. The green-robed boy stood at the door and looked at Fang Yen and the others in the courtyard with an unfriendly expression. Just as everyone was wondering who Mr. Luchi was going to invite in, they saw Luchi, dressed in white, walk out gracefully through the boy's white robe. She stood under the eaves of the courtyard's veranda and looked at everyone in the courtyard with a smile. Everyone who looked into her eyes felt that she was looking at them, and then their expressions became excited. "Look, she's Luchi. Oh my God, she's one of Hua Xia's 7 addicts. So beautiful. Luchi, I actually saw Luchi. Oh my God, today's beating was worth it." The person she admired appeared, and the flower addict looked at her with a face full of surprise. She wanted to say something, but her mouth moved, but she couldn't say a word. There were thousands of words that she couldn't express in her stupidity. It was Luchi who took the initiative to speak. She looked at the Luchi tree that just appeared in the courtyard and said to Luchi with a smile, "Fiang's skills are getting better and better. Just now, I heard you play a flute song from afar. It was so moving that it could linger for 3 months. The flower addict finally regained a bit of rationality, or at least some ability to speak. She looked at Luchi with a fanatical gaze and said, "Liu Yun's skills are also getting better and better. Just now, I heard you playing a flute song from afar. It was so moving that it could linger for 3 months. Luchi nodded and said, I came to Huaqing to visit an old friend, and also to meet a friend of 3 years. I'm going back to the capital tomorrow. I didn't expect Fuyang to come over because of a song. There are so many guests today, Lu Yun is overwhelmed by the favor. The flower addict Lin Fuyang smiled and said, to be able to listen to Lu Yun's song, even if I had to fly across the ocean to see you, it wouldn't be a problem. Fang Yan just thought that the flower addict, Lin Fuyang, was a bumpkin who had never seen the world, but now he had to admit that Lin Fuyang's poetry attainments were excellent. He spoke like he was writing poetry, and he could skillfully put some popular song titles into the content of his speech, and it had an excellent effect of confession. Just based on this move, Fang Yan had a whole new level of respect for him. Thank you, Fuyang, for your kindness. Lu Shuiyun said with a smile, it's fate that we meet. I don't have any good tea here, so I'll go back and play a song for everyone here. We'll meet again if we're fated. Shuiyun bowed slightly to the people in the courtyard, then turned around and walked towards the box. Oh my God, the music addict is going to give us a song. Lu Qi is beautiful and kind, I like her so much. Lu Qi, I like you. Lu Qi, you are my idol. Those who were beaten black and blue still didn't forget to chase after their idol. Their survival ability was even more tenacious than cockroaches. The green-robed boy snorted coldly and followed his master back to the room. Bang! The door of the box was slammed shut by the little boy. After a while, the moving sound of a flute came from the box. This is a song for me. The flower addict muttered to himself. Lan Shanggu nodded in agreement and said, this song is very beautiful. What's its name? Falling flowers and flowing water. The flower addict said. Lan Shanggu suddenly felt that the flower addict was very pitiful. Very, very pitiful. Thus, Lan Shanggu decided to comfort him. He patted his shoulder and said, Senior flower addict, you can stay in my small courtyard. I don't have anything else here, but I have enough flowers and plants. Standing at the entrance of the Blue Mountain Club, Chen Shuer's expression was extremely ugly. Lin Zheng respectfully stood next to him and said in a low voice, Boss, this Lan Shanggu is arrogant and domineering. He doesn't give our Tiandu real estate any face. I told him the boss's name, and he still doesn't want to let him go. I've negotiated with them for a long time, but I still can't confirm whether the young master is safe or not. Their people are guarding the entrance of the courtyard. I tried many times but couldn't break in. Boss, I didn't do my job well and failed to live up to your trust. Chen Shuer patted Lin Zheng's shoulder and said, Old Lin, it's not your fault. Some youngsters these days, they haven't suffered any hardships, haven't encountered any hardships, so they have arrogance in their bones and don't care about anyone. This is understandable. They said that the music addict is in the club, using the name of the music addict to extort money from everyone. Should we call the police? If the police come, we won't be able to punish the real villains. Chen Shuer said, Settle privately and pay us tens of thousands of dollars. Is this the end of it? Boss is right. Chen Shuer waved his hand and a bald man ran over and said, Boss, I'll go and smash his stupid club. Chen Shuer nodded and said, Dahai, go and smash the club for me. Let them pay the price. Let Lan Shanggu come out and talk to me. His club is expensive, I won't go in. Boss, don't worry. I'll twist Lan Shanggu's head off and kick it like a ball. Dahai agreed and led a group of men in black toward Lan Shanggu Club. Chen Shuer sat in his Bentley and leisurely lit a cigarette. Lin Zheng also sat in and comforted him. Boss, don't worry, there will be results soon. Dahai is very organized. There's no rush, Chen Shuer said. It's Lan Shanggu who is in a rush. Of course, Lin Zheng said with a smile. Boss, you're worth two. When that happens, it won't be easy for them to send young master back. They have to apologize and compensate. They have to give us a reason. If the reason isn't good, we won't accept it. That's true, Chen Shuer said with a smile. It's easy to invite a god in but hard to send him away. Young people will never learn to be obedient if they don't suffer a little. I'll be Lan Shanggu's mentor for once. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the car window. Chen Shuer was furious. There were bodyguards outside. How could they let someone knock on the car window? Where did they go to eat sh*t? Knock, knock, knock. This time, it wasn't knocking, it was slapping. Lin Zheng looked out the window and said, "Boss, it's Lan Shanggu. That brat from Lan Shanggu is here." It was indeed Lan Shanggu standing outside. Of course, there was also Chen Shuer's bodyguard, Baldi Dahai. Baldi Dahai was being held up by two men in black. His bald head was no longer intact, it was stained with red blood. His face was a mess of flesh and blood. Who knew how many punches and kicks he took? Lin Zheng opened the car door and got out, then stood guard by the door. Chen Shuer then got out of the Bentley. He glanced at Baldi Dahai and sighed that he wasn't careful enough and fell for this brat's trick. Looking at the two bodyguards lying on the ground, he cursed them for being idiots. They kept bragging about being the top fighter of the international mercenary group, the best soldier in the world, but in less than 3 minutes, they were beaten up and dragged back. Lan Shanggu laughed as he looked at Chen Shuer and said, "Boss Chen, these are your people, right?" Chen Shuer stared at Lan Shanggu and said, "That's right." "As long as they're not," Lan Shanggu laughed and said, "I'll bring them to you." Lan Shanggu waved his hand and said, "Hand them over to Boss Chen." And so, the men in black let go at the same time. The bodyguards that went in with Baldi Dahai immediately went limp and fell to the ground. This kind of behavior was undoubtedly a ruthless slap on Chen Shuer's face. He felt his face burning with pain. "Boss Chen, I've brought them to you. You have a lot of work to do, I won't disturb your work anymore." Lan Shanggu laughed and said, "Goodbye." Saying that, he turned around and walked towards the Blue Mountain Club. "Lan Shanggu," Chen Shuer shouted. Lan Shanggu turned around, smiled and asked, "Boss Chen, is there anything else?" "You imprisoned my son, Chen Guijing, beat up my bodyguards, and you're leaving just like that?" Chen Shuer coldly asked. "So Chen Guijing is Boss Chen's son. I just found out," Lan Shanggu laughed and said. "Boss Chen, you came at the right time. I have something to discuss with you. Today, my Blue Mountain Club had a guest. Your son, Chen Guijing, ran over and insulted and kicked the door. My guest was very angry, and I lost face as well. Originally, I was going to call the police and send those hooligans to the police station for a few days. But a bunch of uncles kept apologizing to me and said that it wouldn't happen again. I had to give them face. What did Boss Chen say? Isn't the guest you're talking about Luqi? Others might be afraid of the man behind Luqi, but I, Chen Shuer, really don't care about her. My son bullied her, so what? Lan Shanggu, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't go overboard. If you go too far, don't blame us for disregarding our image and taking action against you, a junior. Grandpa Lan is a smart man. Why don't you give him a call and ask for his opinion? I'm also the man behind Luqi, one of them. Fang Yen smiled as he walked out from the shadows and said, I don't feel comfortable hearing someone bully my woman. Chen Shuer, others might be afraid of the power of the Chen family in Tiandu, but I, Fang Yen, really don't care about you. I bullied you today, so what? Chapter 636. Chen Shuer had many investment projects in Huaqing, so he spent a lot of time in Huaqing. However, overnight, he realized that he didn't understand the young people in Huaqing anymore. The once glorious four beauties of Huaqing were either disfigured or sent to prison. They had long become a topic of conversation and a joke in the eyes of countless people. Lan Gu broke both his arms and left the Lan family, becoming rootless duckweed. Because of this, when Chen Shuer heard that his son, Chen Guijing, had a conflict with Langu, he only sent a lawyer over to deal with it. He thought that as long as the lawyer mentioned the name of the Chen family in Tiandu, Langu's only choice would be to lower their heads and admit their mistake. They would then respectfully send Chen Guijing out. He would be magnanimous and punish them a little. What else could he do to them? No matter how useless Langu was, he was still a descendant of the Lan family. He couldn't offend the Lan family too much, right? Chen Shuer was attending a small private gathering when he received a call from the lawyer, Lin Zheng. Lin Zheng was in a bad mood. He said that Langu's attitude was bad and they weren't willing to let him go. Chen Shuer thought about it and decided to make a trip himself. No matter how busy his business was or how important his connections were, He had to be extra careful when it came to his son. He had already thought about it on the way here. First, he would let Baldy Big C and his men destroy the Blue Mountain Club from the inside out. Then, he would let Lan Shanggu come over to apologize personally. That was exactly what he did. But wasn't the ending a little too quick? Qin Shuai knew of Fang Yan. Anyone who had reached a certain level would know of his existence. Even if they didn't like him, who could easily ignore him? He was the major shareholder of Chaoyan Technology. He was on good terms with Langu's Lu Shu. He was sworn brothers with Du Qing of Qingyun Group. Such a person was still very powerful in Huaqing. However, he had offended some big shots in Yanjing and was being suppressed everywhere. His life wasn't good. Now that Fang Yan had stepped forward and acted as if he was going to bully Qin Shuai on behalf of Li Qi, Qin Shuai's anger soared. For decades, no one had ever dared to point at Qin Shuai's nose and say, "So what if I want to bully you?" Fang Yan. Qin Shuai's voice was low. He was trying hard to suppress the anger that was about to erupt. "Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? How dare you little brats talk to me like this?" Fang Yan squinted his eyes and smiled. He pointed at Langa Valley and said to Qin Shuai, "This guy has been discriminated against for a long time. Tonight, he suddenly wanted to find someone to show off his power. After thinking about it, he thought of your son. So, he picked up a wooden stick and gave it a good beating. Your son is now lying on the grass in the yard, pretending to be dead. Even if someone stepped on his face, he wouldn't dare to move." "Fang Yan, don't go too far. How could that be?" Fang Yan said with a smile. "You, the bald bodyguard, wanted to smash the club, but before he could do anything, he was beaten to death by the hidden troops in the Orchid Valley. How bad can he be? He planned it and was waiting for you to come. Just now, I tried to persuade him, saying that Mr. Qin is a guest from afar, and that he should just ask a few of his brothers to send his people over. But he refused, insisting that he wanted to see Mr. Chen's funny expression at this time. I think he's being too unreasonable. So I followed him to see." "Fang Yan," Qin Shuai roared in anger. "Since you've done this, prepare to wait for my revenge." Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "If I were you, I would go back and watch my stock price." "What do you mean?" "When Nasdaq opens, Chaoyan Technology will buy Tiandu real estate stock price. It may also be a malicious suppression." Fang Yan looked at Qin Shuai with a smile and said, "You should know something about Chaoyan Technology, right? We have plenty of money anyway." You guys." Qin Shuai's eyes were red, and his face turned purple. His hands trembled and he stammered, unable to utter a complete sentence. Fang Yan stared at Qin Shuai and said, "Mr. Qin, do you understand what we mean now? What do you guys want?" Lin Zheng finally reacted. This was a big conspiracy, a big conspiracy. These bastards, they set up trap after trap, and only now did they reveal their fierce fangs. They wanted to suck blood. They used Qin Guijing as a bait to lure out Qin Shuai, the big shot behind the scenes. What did they want? "Don't even think about touching Longtu," Fang Yan said coldly. "Longtu belongs to Lu Chaoga. No one can take it away." "How do you know?" Qin Shuai stared at Fang Yan in horror and asked. "It's not convenient for the Ren family to make a move, so they asked the Chen family, who have been on good terms with them for generations. You and your father have been so happy in Huaqing recently, hiring a lawyer to help Jiang Zhulu reverse the verdict, and frequently meeting with Jiang Zhulio's mother, Renjin. If you say your goal isn't for Longtu Group, at least I won't believe it. What? Even Grandpa Ren, who called his son-in-law a scalper and a dog, can't sit still? Seeing such a big piece of fat meat, even if it's the property of his daughter and grandson, he won't hesitate to snatch it. But he's worried about his face, so he threw you, Qin Shuai, out as a cover. Am I right?" "You." Qin Shuai pointed at Fang Yan and couldn't say anything for a long time. This handsome young man was even scarier than they had imagined. Lan Shanggu looked at Qin Shuai with a smile and said, "Fortunately, Tingyue praised Qin Guijing in front of me a few times, saying that he's a good friend, so I was curious to find out about his background. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been easy to find out if you had done it so covertly." Qin Shuai left. He came valiantly and energetically, But when he left, it was as if someone had splashed a bowl of rancid soup on his face. That feeling was really King refreshing. He had the urge to beat his bastard son to death. He told him to stay in Mingzhu, but he insisted on coming to Huaqing to show off. In the end, he was betrayed by his own friend. He, Chen Shuer, had been smart his whole life. How did he have such a bastard son? The Bentley drove away. Fang Yan and Lan Shanggu stood in the night breeze. Fang Yan looked at Lan Shanggu with a smile and said, "Your last stab was really vicious." Lan Shanggu didn't respond to Fang Yan's question, but said with a smile, "Is Chaoyan Technology really going to buy Tiandu real estate? If you guys do it, I'll also follow suit. Let Willow start too. You eat the meat and we'll drink the soup?" Fang Yan shook his head with a smile and said, "I'm just scaring him. Chaoga has a new plan, and Chaoyan Technology has no plans to enter the real estate field for the time being." "What plan? Give us a hint in advance?" Fang Yan shook his head with a smile and said, "You guys should ask her directly." Lan Shanggu smiled bitterly and said, "To be honest, Lan Shanggu, have never been a timid person, but once I saw Miss Lu, I became a sick cat. Then don't blame me." Fang Yan said with a smile, "I've finished the tea, I'll go back first." "You're leaving just like that? You're not going to say hello to Mr. Luqi? Do you think she needs someone to say hello to her? Then what about the local specialties of Huaqing that I prepared for her? Give it to her yourself. What if she doesn't accept it? Can I say it's from you? Whatever." Fang Yan waved his hand and walked straight to his car. When Fang Yan returned to the security office of Rosefinch Secondary, Baldy and his friends expressed a momentary shock and a long-lasting fake surprise. Baldy acted as if he had met an old flame that he hadn't seen for many years. He grabbed Fang Yan's arm and said, "Mr. Fang, you haven't come to school for a while. I've been worried about your safety and called you several times, but I couldn't get through to your phone. I went to the dean's office to ask about your situation, and he said that you asked for a leave of absence. I've been waiting for you day and night, and finally you're back." "Yes, you're finally back. Mr. Fang, the next time you go out, you must let us know so that we won't worry," the other two chimed in as well. It was as if they had lost all interest in life when Fang Yan wasn't around. Only God knew how happy they were. Fang Yan shook off Baldy's excessive affection and asked, "Is there anything going on at school recently?" Baldy cleared his throat and said, "Wang Chang, report the work." "Yes, Director." Wang Chang immediately flipped open the small notebook he carried with him, straightened his back, and read in front of Fang Yan. On the morning of November 11th, 9 students were late. Their names are Wang Halai, Wan Mingming, Li Xiaola. All right. Fang Yan waved his hand. "No need to read. I'm just asking if there's anything big happening at school recently." "Yes. Our school is going to build a new campus in Shenzhen City." "Is that a big deal?" Fang Yan nodded and said, "I already know about this." "What else is there?" "The news just leaked today and you already know about it?" Baldy asked in surprise. Then he felt relieved and said, "That's right, you have Principal Lu." Fang Yan really wanted to beat him up. Knock, knock, knock. Someone gently knocked on the window of the security booth. Fang Yan turned around and saw Su Qi, who he hadn't seen for a while, standing outside the window and looking at Fang Yan with a smile. "Mr. Fang, long time no see." Su Qi smiled and greeted Fang Yan. Fang Yan nodded and said, "Su Qi, long time no see." "It really has been a long time." Su Qi looked at Fang Yan thoughtfully and said, "I was worried that I wouldn't be able to see you today. It wasn't easy to meet you, so I can't let this opportunity slip by. Mr. Fang, do you have time tomorrow night?" "What's the matter?" Fang Yan asked. "Tomorrow is my birthday, and I want to invite you to my birthday party. Can Mr. Fang do me the honor of attending?" Chapter 637. 3 years ago, when Fang Yan was still the language teacher and homeroom teacher of Class 9, there were often students who invited Fang Yan to birthday parties. Fang Yan rejected most of them, but when he couldn't refuse, he would go and give them a small gift. Life was simple and happy at that time, and his mood was relaxed. Fang Yen was still a child who hadn't grown up yet, and there were countless people who loved and spoiled him. 3 years later, things were different. He was no longer a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary, but he became a security guard at Rosefinch Secondary to protect the safety of the students. He didn't have the mood to be a teacher anymore. He was worried that the hostility in his heart would be released and lead the students who were crazily absorbing knowledge and nutrition. He didn't expect that there would still be girls who invited him to a birthday party. Inviting a security guard? Wasn't this clearly asking him to go to those luxurious and magnificent places to show off? Fang Yan's first reaction was to refuse. He had too many things to do. Was it necessary for him to go to a student's birthday party? Moreover, it was a female student who was obviously very interested in him. Please, Rosefinch Secondary forbade relationships between teachers and students. Fang Yan wasn't that kind of person at all. Fang Yan raised his eyebrows slightly. When he was about to refuse, Su Qi spoke first. She was still smiling as she looked at Fang Yan sincerely and said, "Mr. Fang, if you could come, it would be the best birthday present I've received." This sentence was too destructive. It immediately blocked the words that Fang Yan was about to say. Your coming is the best present she's received. Can you bear not to give someone a present on their birthday? Can you bear to ruin someone's happy mood? I'm free tomorrow too. Baldy touched his bald head and said with a smile, Su Qi, can I have the honor to go to your birthday party? Of course. Su Qi nodded. She even invited the other 2 security guards and said, you guys can go together. Let me introduce some friends to you. There's good wine to drink and cakes to eat. Wow, can we go to your birthday party too? That's great. Tomorrow, I'm going to wear the new suit I bought during the new year. Fang Yan hadn't agreed yet, but the other 3 had already accepted. Su Qi looked at Fang Yan with bright eyes, quietly waiting for Fang Yan's answer in anticipation. Fang Yan looked at Su Qi and said with a chuckle, Happy birthday, Su Qi. However, I already have other arrangements tomorrow, so I might not be able to make it. The smile on Su Qi's face disappeared and she said with some regret, It's really disappointing. Mr. Fang, though you have already refused me, I still hope that you will go, because there is someone who wishes to see you. Fang Yan asked curiously, I should have told you. Su Qi smiled slyly and said, But you rejected me just now, which made me very sad. So, I'm not going to tell you. You'll know when you see for yourself. In other words, if you don't go tomorrow, you'll never know who the person who wishes to see you is. Everyone is curious. You must be very curious right now, right? Fang Yan looked at Su Qi helplessly and said, If I really don't go, won't you ruin someone else's business? I don't care. Su Qi said matter-of-factly. I'm injured, can I throw a tantrum? That's for women. She took out a few invitations from her bag and placed them on the only wooden table in the security booth. She said, There's an address on the invitations. I'm looking forward to your coming. After that, the girl skipped away. Baldy looked at Fang Yan with a sad face and said, Mr. Fang, Su Qi has good intentions. Why didn't you agree? Fang Yan looked at Baldy with a smile and said, What? She bought you over just because she invited you to a concert? Hey, am I that kind of person? Baldy said with a wave of his hand. He then asked Fang Yan in a low voice, When will Arasima come to Huacheng to hold a concert again? I don't know about that, Fang Yan said. I haven't contacted them for a long time. Fang Yan hadn't contacted the 2 girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, recently. First, he was injured and recuperating on the mountain. At that time, he didn't even know where he lost his phone. Later, after getting someone to get a new SIM card, he didn't reply in time when he received inquiries from them. With the promotion of Summer's resources, the 2 girls became more and more popular and were liked by more and more people. Every time Fang Yan opened the newspaper, he could see all kinds of information about them. They said that Jiang Qin was in a relationship with a male celebrity, that Yuan Lin and Jiang Qin were lesbians, that Jiang Qin was going to enter the film industry again, and that Arasima was going to disband. All kinds of rumors made people dizzy. Fang Yan laughed at such rumors. He knew that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had a very good relationship. They were good in the past, and they would be good in the future. Moreover, even if they had a conflict, Summer would solve it well. She was a smart woman. Baldy's face was full of regret. He said, I really want to have a chance to go to their concert again. Mr. Fong, can you get me an autograph from Arasima? Fong Yen looked at him helplessly and said, can't you have something else to pursue in life? Then come with us to Su Chi's birthday party. The girl specially came to invite you. Yes, Mr. Fong, during the days when you were not at school, every time she came to school and passed by our security booth, she would ask if you came, rain or shine. How many days has she persisted? I was touched by her. Fong Yen sighed softly and said, if that's the case, I can't go. It's better to avoid trouble. After school in the afternoon, Fong Yen didn't rush back to Lu Chaoga's villa, but walked to the area inside the school. When Fong Yen walked to the entrance of the small courtyard, he saw Qin Ying and a few men in black from the Wind Group sitting in the RV at the entrance, playing poker. Qin Ying's face was pasted with a lot of notes. It seemed that his luck was not very good today. Fong Yen stood at the door of the RV and asked with a smile, why don't you go in and sit? I don't dare to go in. Qin Ying shook his head. But Fong Yen asked curiously. Qin Ying tore off the notes on his face, looked at Fong Yen and said, when you were not in Huaqing, we often accompanied Miss Lu here. The first time we came, we didn't know that your grandfather was Huaqing's famous academic prime minister Lu Gong. When I saw this old man, I felt my whole body tremble and every part of me felt uncomfortable. After I found out his identity, I didn't dare to step into his small courtyard anymore. Me too. Maybe it's because I didn't study well when I was young. When your grandfather glanced at me, my whole body would tremble, as if I had done something wrong. Hee, it's better not to let us go in and suffer. We'd rather play poker in the RV comfortably. Fong Yen patted the car door and said, all right, I'll bring you some food later. No need. We brought our own food. Qin Ying refused. Fong Yen shook his head and said, how can that be? When you come to my grandparents' house, you're my guests. How can you let your guests eat canned food and beef jerky? Qin Ying laughed and said, all right, if there's any extra, you can bring us a plate. We can also improve our lives. No problem. Fong Yen chatted with the young people for a while before stepping into the courtyard. Lu Gong was watching the afternoon news in the living room. When he saw Fong Yen come in, he only snorted coldly. He didn't even look at him. Fong Yen smiled awkwardly and said, Grandpa, are you watching the news? Lu Gong's face was gloomy and he didn't respond to Fong Yen. Fong Yan's grandmother heard the noise and walked out of the kitchen. She grabbed Fong Yan's arm and said, Fong Yen, you've been back in Huaqing for so long, and you didn't come to see your grandparents. Grandma missed you so much. Good boy, let Grandma see if you've lost weight. You look good, which proves that Zhaoga has taken good care of you. Grandma, I'm sorry. Fong Yen said these words with difficulty. Facing his closest family, he had 1,000 words in his heart, but he didn't know how to express them. Silly boy, what have you done to me? Grandma held Fong Yan's hand tightly and said, I know you're in a bad mood, so I didn't call you. Let bygones be bygones. You have to be good in the future. As she spoke, Grandma's eyes turned red and she said, You're the only one your mom can rely on. You have to be careful. Lu Gong was infuriated. He slapped the table and shouted, What are you crying for? Isn't he still alive and well? Grandma was also angry and said, You old man, when Fong Yen didn't come, you sighed every day and hinted to me to call him and ask him to come over for dinner. Now that Fong Yen is here, you put on a sour face and don't say anything. What do you mean? Why are you slapping the table? If you can, why don't you smash the table? You, what about me? Stupid woman. Stupid as hell. Oh, you're saying I'm stupid now that you're old? You call me a stupid woman. Go find someone smarter. Lu Chaoga appeared at the kitchen door and said anxiously, Grandma, the chicken wings are burning. Oh, I'm still cooking in the pot. Fong Yen, take a seat first. Ignore that old man. As he spoke, he jogged into the kitchen. Lu Chaoga gave Fong Yen a look, telling him that the situation was dangerous and that he should be careful. Lu Gong gave Fong Yen a sharp look and said, Come upstairs with me. Fong Yen felt a headache coming on. As soon as he entered his grandfather's study, he would inevitably be reprimanded and lectured. Chapter 638. Lu Gong entered the study, walked straight to his big mahogany chair and sat down. The sofa in Lu Gong's house was made of wood, the chair was made of wood, and most of the furniture was made of wood as well. His aesthetic was exactly the same as his character. Square, dignified, and simple. If he could straighten his back, he would never lie down. Lu Gong glanced at Fang Yen standing in front of him, pressed his raised palm down, and said softly, "Sit down." Fang Yen, who was pretending to be a wronged wife, suddenly raised his head and looked at Lu Gong in disbelief. What was going on? Why did the scene suddenly change? According to the old routine, Grandpa should have slowly brewed a pot of tea and let Fang Yen cool for a while before snorting and shouting, "Do you know what you did wrong? Since when did the domineering Xiao start to walk the path of a romantic lead? He told you to sit down." Lu Gong saw Fang Yan's expression and naturally knew what he was thinking. His tone was a little unnatural. Fang Yan hurriedly sat down. If he didn't look for trouble, he wouldn't take the initiative to look for trouble. Otherwise, wouldn't he be born to be a bitch? Lu Gong looked at Fang Yan and said, "You have hatred in your heart." Fang Yan was shocked again and said, "Grandpa, you saw that too?" Lu Gong patted an ancient book in front of him and said, "Tsengwa Pan wrote, Ice Mirror, to teach people the art of judging people. Get rid of the grain and turn it into chaff. The marrow remains, the way of God. Mountains don't collapse, only 100 can suppress it, the so-called bones. A person's spirit has 2 eyes, a person's bones have a face. A scholar first looks at the God's bones. Getting straight to the point is the first. You, Fang Yan, have read thousands of books, so you can be considered half a scholar. A scholar first looks at the God's bones. Fang Yan, didn't you show it? No matter how relaxed your smile was, no matter how natural your movements were, your mind was always tense. It's like a treasured sword that can take a person's life at any time." Lu Gong sighed softly and said, "In the past, you were happy because you were truly happy. Now, you are happy because you want to hide the unhappiness in your heart. Fang Yan, have you ever been this cautious and reserved when you came to my place before?" "Grandfather, there is hatred in my heart." Fang Yan could only confess to this old man. If he was so powerful, why didn't he go to the bridge to pick up stalls? "You hate your father's murderer?" "Yes." Fang Yan nodded. "I hated myself before too." "Hate yourself? Hate what? The child wants to support him, but his parents don't? Or do you hate yourself for not being able to save your father?" "Both," Fang Yan said in a deep voice. "If you hate the former, I can understand. Most people in the modern world don't know how to cherish. They only regret when they lose it. But that's regret, not hatred. If you hate yourself because of this, then you won't be able to rest easy in the underworld. But if you hate yourself for not being able to save your father, then that's the height of stupidity. Are you a god? Of course not, Fang Yan thought. If you're not my grandfather, I'll beat you up. Is there a need to be so sarcastic? Since you're not a god, why do you think you're omnipotent? Just do your best. Lu Gong comforted him softly. Do your best and leave it to fate. Some things are fate. Fang Yan looked at Lu Gong and said, Grandfather, you're well-read. Do you also believe in fate? 1 is fate, 2 is luck, 3 is feng shui, 4 is yin virtue, and 5 is literature. Fate is number 1, followed by luck and feng shui. We can't change what is fated by the heavens no matter how hard we try. Since we can't change it, we can only force ourselves to accept it. Do you know why I haven't called you? Grandfather wanted me to figure it out on my own. I wanted you to figure it out on your own and walk out on your own, Lu Gong said earnestly. But you still can't figure it out, and you still can't figure it out. You're loyal, but your aptitude is really stupid. Fang Yan wanted to hit someone again. He was really envious of Lu Gong. Since he was born, fate had arranged for him to be his grandfather. Otherwise, this old man would already be lying on the ground. He didn't want to be a teacher and ran to be a school security guard? Who came up with this stupid idea? It's Baldy, Fang Yen said. Good brother, take the bullet for me. Grandfather won't look for trouble with you anyway. If the old man really does look for trouble with you, it won't be long before you become famous in the education world. I'm helping you. Who's Baldy? You wouldn't know even if I told you. But grandfather, you're right. His idea is really stupid. Professions don't differentiate between high and low. This is the point I've always insisted on. However, you can clearly be an excellent teacher, you can clearly teach more excellent students, but because you can't untie the knot in your heart, you can't get rid of the hostility in your heart, so you can only become a security guard. What does this mean? It means that my aptitude is stupid. Fang Yen learned to be smart. I'll scold myself first so you can't scold me anymore, right? No, it means that your self-control is extremely poor. An excellent man, a successful man, they can adjust their emotions at any time so that they can face any difficulties and challenges with the best mental state, whether it's doing business or anything else. They can get twice the result with half the effort. Fang Yen thought seriously and said, Grandfather, I understand. I'll go back and quit my job as a security guard. Ready to go back and be a teacher? Lu Gong's face finally showed a smile. No, I'm going to quit my job at school and focus on my own business. What business? Revenge. After a long silence, Lu Gong said, Fang Yen, I won't persuade you to give up on your hatred. A person who doesn't know how to repay kindness or fight back when insulted is incomplete, but I hope you can live up to the family rules and your conscience. Rising to his feet, Fang Yen bowed deeply to Lu Gong and said, Grandfather, I understand. Lu Gong waved his hand and said, You're dismissed. Otherwise, your grandmother will quarrel with me again and say that I bullied you. Fang Yen smiled obsequiously and said, Grandfather, you're scolding me to teach me a lesson. You don't need to scold other people. Stop flattering me, said Lu Gong. Treat Chaoga well. What? Fang Yen stared at Lu Gong with wide eyes. The old man had never asked about his feelings. What was wrong with him today? Fang Yen, Yixing's accident happened to coincide with the 3 years you were away. It was Chaoga who stayed by your grandmother's side when she was the most upset. I heard from Qin Ying that Chaoga got into a few accidents. I told her not to come, and I even slammed the door in her face a few times, but she insisted on coming here once a week. Rain or shine. Fang Yen, no matter how big a man's career is or how ambitious he is, he should always leave some space for his family and spare some attention for his woman. Otherwise, how is he different from a beast? Feelings are the most difficult things to bear in life. I hope you can take care of yourself and don't let any harm come to the good girl. Lu Gong stared at Fang Yen sharply and said, I know you're not a heartless person, but if you betray Chaoga, I'll whip you no matter how hard your grandmother tries to stop me. What if she betrays me? Fang Yen said gloomily. What the hell was going on here? Why was he and Lu Chaoga a couple again? You deserve it. By the time Fang Yen and Lu Gong went downstairs, Grandma and Lu Chaoga had already prepared a table full of dishes. Grandma wiped her hands with a towel, then went up to Fang Yen and whispered, Did the old man scold you? No, Fang Yen said with a smile. Grandfather just asked me how I've been and was concerned about my health and my relationship. He couldn't say it in front of you. That stubborn old man, Grandma grinned. He's been stubborn all his life. Don't take anything he says to heart. Is that how you teach your kid? Lu Gong flared up again. He had spent his entire life teaching and educating people, so he liked to put his teaching methods into practice on Fang Yen. But his wife was always spoiling him, and every time, she would ruin the correct outlook on life that he had worked so hard to establish for Fang Yen. Fang Yen is old enough to get married and have kids, but he's still a kid in your eyes? Don't you always tell me not to be too hard on him when he's still a kid? That's right, I think he's a kid, but you men still think he's a kid. What kind of logic is that? Fang Yen tried to smooth things over and said with a smile, Why are there so many dishes today? Is it done? Can we eat now? Lu Gong glanced at Fang Yen and said, Bring some dishes to Qin Ying and the others first, and a basket of steamed buns. Okay, I'll bring them over now, Fang Yen said. He brought over a few dishes and a basket of steamed buns. Qin Ying and the others were overjoyed. They loved the home-cooked food made by Fang Yan's grandmother. "Come, let's eat too," Grandma said. Lu Gong was in a good mood today, and he even went to the liquor cabinet to get a bottle of Maoi. "I'll have a glass, and the rest is for Fang Yan." Grandma kept putting food into Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga's bowl, and her face lit up when she saw the young couple eating happily. "Fang Yan," Grandma asked Fang Yan. Fang Yan looked up at her. "Grandma, what is it? Tell me." "I mean about your marriage with Chaoga." Fang Yan spat out the hot chicken soup in his mouth. Chapter 639. The soup is too hot. Fang Yan wiped his mouth with a napkin and said awkwardly, "Can't you be more careful when you're eating?" Grandma scolded him and got up to wipe the soup off the table from Fang Yan's mouth. "All right, I'll stop talking," Fang Yan said with a smile. "You can't stop talking. I was just asking you a question." Grandma wouldn't let it go. "Is your marriage with Chaoga going to be put on the agenda? I mentioned it 3 years ago, but you and Chaoga didn't take my words to heart. You were still young back then, and I just wanted you to spend a few more years together to build a relationship. But now, 3 years have passed, and you're not young anymore. Isn't it time to think about it? 3 years after 3 years, how many 3 years can a person have in a lifetime?" Back in the study, his grandpa had reminded him not to let down Lu Chaoga, who was a good woman. Now, his grandma was seriously discussing it at the dinner table. Fang Yan understood his grandfather and grandmother's attitude toward Lu Xiaoga. In the 3 years that he had been away, Lu Xiaoga had taken his place to take care of them and comfort them. She had walked into their lives and into their hearts. They had long regarded Lu Xiaoga as part of their family. Fang Yan felt the need to explain this to his grandparents. He needed to tell them about his real relationship with Lu Xiaoga. Were they just friends? Comrades? Or partners? Or partners who relied on each other in life? Or were they close friends who relied on each other? For a moment, Fang Yan couldn't determine the relationship between him and Lu Xiaoga. She was an indispensable person in his life, but she wasn't the one who accompanied him all the time. They were still living under the same roof, and he lived next door to her, eating breakfast at the same table every morning. However, they hadn't reached that point yet. Fang Yan wanted to tell his grandparents that he had a girlfriend named Yi Ro. She was pretty and cute, sometimes a little muddle-headed, but good at fighting. She would be able to protect herself and their grandson from harm. Maybe I should find a time to bring Yi Ro over. They must like Yi Ro very much, right? They liked her as much as they liked Lu Xiaoga. Fang Yan put down his chopsticks. When he was about to discuss this with his grandparents, Lu Xiaoga, who had been eating, said, "Grandma, I'll talk to Fang Yan about it. Don't push him." Her grandmother loved Lu Xiaoga to the core, and she was very obedient to this girl who was very assertive. When she heard that she wanted to communicate with Fang Yan, her grandmother did not pursue the matter any further. Instead, she looked at Fang Yan and Lu Xiaoga earnestly and said, "I'm still thinking of having a grandson. Your mother has nothing to do all day, and she's not in a good mood. If there's a child that can keep her busy, the situation will probably be better." Fang Yan nodded and said, "I've been calling my mother these days. She's been in good spirits recently. I'll go back to visit her whenever I have time." Lu Gong put a piece of fish into his wife's bowl and said, "Let's eat. Let the children worry about their own things. Let's eat." Grandma began to crazily stuff fish and meat into Fang Yan and Lu Xiaoga's bowls. In the GMC limousine, Fang Yan was watching an entertainment program on TV. From time to time, he would laugh at the host's wonderful lines and funny actions. Lu Xiaoga was reading a newly published fashion magazine. She was marking a few pieces of clothing and jewelry that she liked. When the time came, her assistant, Meng Xiaoying, would naturally buy them for her according to her measurements. Both of them looked very busy, and the atmosphere in the car was not heavy. However, they both felt that there was something blocking between them. Qining didn't know what had happened. He turned around and said, "Mr. Fang, the steamed buns that your grandma made were really delicious. There were 9 steamed buns in a steamer, and I ate 4 by myself. The other two guys ate 2.5 each, and they even complained that they weren't full. Fang Yen smiled and said, "If you like it, I'll ask Grandma to steam more for you next time." Qin Ying looked at Fang Yen with a puzzled look and said, "Usually, when I make such a rude request, don't you directly reject it? Why did you agree so easily today? You're not going to ask anything of me, are you?" "I beg you to shut up," Fang Yen said. Qin Ying looked at Fang Yen and Lu Chaoge in surprise, then quickly pulled up the small partition between the driver's seat and the back seat. He knew that the two people in the back were in trouble. Let them fight to the death and love each other. Fang Yen took the remote control and turned off the TV with a bang. He looked at Lu Xiaoge and asked, "Why didn't you let me explain to Grandma?" "How do you explain that?" Lu Xiaoge asked. "I have to tell them about it," said Fang Yen. "Grandpa told me to treat you well in the study. On the desk, Grandma forced us to get married again. Chaoge, they should know that I already have a girlfriend. Then tell them that Lu Chaoge isn't the woman you like. She's just a close friend, a business partner, and a friend of yours." "Chaoge, Fang Yen, being rejected by a man, this is such an embarrassing thing for a woman," Lu Xiaoge said in a sad voice. Even the big boss of Chaoyan Technology, the queen of Little Flame, had the emotional struggles of an ordinary girl. If this got out, the reporters would probably be shocked. "I'm sorry," Fang Yen looked at Lu Chaoge sincerely. "I just thought that we shouldn't let this misunderstanding get bigger and bigger. It'll only make things worse for us. I think they're not only urging me, but they're also urging you behind my back, right? I don't feel annoyed that they're urging me. On the contrary, I'm actually happy," said Lu Chaoge honestly. "Because someone cares about me, not because of benefits, but because of personal feelings." Lu Chaoge was wearing a white business suit. When she crossed her legs, the skirt of her short skirt was pulled up to the base of her plump thighs. She wore a light yellow silk shirt under the small silver jacket. The front of the shirt was pushed up high, and the buttons seemed to be ready to fly out at any time. Her long hair was loose and the wind blew at the bottom. She wore light makeup, and her facial features were exquisite and flawless. She looked like a ripe peach. Everyone who saw her would have the same feeling. One bite, and the juice would splatter, sweet and delicious. She was already a 31-year-old woman. She had the best years of a woman, and she was at the peak of her career. However, this was also a dangerous stage because the time between blooming and wilting was too short. "Fang Yen, you didn't do me wrong, I'm the one who should be apologizing." Lu Chaoge didn't avoid Fang Yan's gaze and directly stated the secret in her heart. "What you did today was right. You have the right and obligation to tell your grandparents that you have a girlfriend. You should even bring her in front of them for them to see. They are people you care about, and you hope that they can like each other. It's just that I made things difficult for you in the middle." Lu Chaoge smiled bitterly and said, "I know it's wrong, but I don't want to correct it. I'm too selfish. They said that when I wasn't here, you treated them very well. I treated them very well because they treated me better." Lu Chaoge gently stroked the hair on her forehead, and her palm unconsciously stroked the beauty on the page. She said, "After Aunt left, the only family I have in this world is you. I treat you as my family, and subconsciously, I also treat your grandparents as my family. After I found out that your father had an accident, I thought that they must be in a very bad mood, so I wanted to accompany them. No matter what, they are just two poor old people. On the way back, I encountered several ambushes. Although I managed to get through all of them safely, my grandfather still knew about it. He didn't allow me to visit them again. There were even several times when I stood in front of the small courtyard, and the door was tightly shut. No matter how I knocked on the door, no one answered. I still couldn't help but go over. Again and again. In the end, they were finally moved by me, and no longer forced me to leave, and no longer shut the door to prevent me from entering. Fang Yen, you are a very, very good person, and they are also very, very good people. It is precisely because you are too good to me that I am greedy for this feeling of home, so I can't bear to leave. So, when you wanted to expose all of this in front of my grandparents, I anxiously stopped you. Because I realized that I am not ready. Lu Chaoga looked at Fang Yen sincerely and said, Fang Yen, it is a fact that you have a girlfriend. We are friends, confidants, and business partners, but we are not lovers. This is also a fact. Since we are not lovers, how can we always live together like this? Since we are not lovers, how can I always occupy your family as my family? I will leave eventually, I just hope that you can give me a little time. There was a trace of weakness in Lu Chaoga's eyes, and there was even a hint of pleading. I just also want to have a family. Chapter 640. Have you ever had this kind of trouble? The person who loves me chases after me closely, and the person I love can't wait for it. Of course, it's also possible that you only have troubles after that. Lu Chaoga was the queen of Chaoyan, the founder of the Chaoyan Empire, and the legendary woman who single-handedly pushed the Little Flame brand to the world. She was a distinguished professor at Harvard Business School, and the audience was always full for 3 consecutive days. She was the youngest female entrepreneur to appear on the cover of Time magazine, but also the most valuable one. Wherever she went, she was the focus of the crowd. She was the darling of countless media cameras. She was Lu Chaoga, an existence that people admired and feared. According to Lu Chaoga's current status, her life should be extremely rich and busy. In the morning, she should attend an economic conference attended by many heads of state. In the afternoon, she should go to the United States or other countries to discuss some important cooperation. She should take a nap on the road and have a spa on her private plane. In the evening, she should attend a cocktail party to communicate with the leaders in various fields, drink with elegant and witty men, and listen to humorous and cute old men brag. However, she had chosen to live a different life. In addition to work, she would go to the mall to buy groceries, and then come back to cook for Fang Yen and even Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan. To put it in a very vulgar way, Lu Xiaoga's life was very incompatible with her family background. She could be a queen, but why did she choose to be a maid? However, Lu Chaoga was willing to accept it, and she cherished and enjoyed all of it. Her parents died when she was young, but she was adopted by an enemy couple. It wasn't easy for her to have an aunt, but she left early, making her an orphan again. Fortunately, in her most difficult time, Fang Yen appeared, shielding her from the wind and rain, blocking the open and covert attacks for her, so that she could survive and have dignity and wealth. She was grateful to Fang Yen. If it weren't for Fang Yen, she would have been stuffed in the trunk of a car and burned to death like her aunt, right? She also relied on Fang Yen. She relied on his strength, his wisdom, and the sense of security that he could bring her. It was also because of his luck at that time that led to the current worrying and tangled situation. Lu Chaoga was not Fang Yan's girlfriend, but many people misunderstood her as Fang Yan's girlfriend. On the other hand, Fang Yan's real girlfriend, Yi Ro, was unknown and had no sense of existence in her grandparents' hearts. Just as Lu Chaoga said, she would choose to leave and take the initiative to solve this problem. She just needed a little more time. She needed time to adapt to living alone. This was her deepest fear, something she abhorred, but it was her fate. She could only accept it. She could be selfish once, but could she really be selfish for the rest of her life? Fang Yen felt Lu Chaoga's sadness and reached out to hold Lu Chaoga's hand. Her little hand was cold, and the knee she touched was also cold. Perhaps the coldness came from the inside out. The life she didn't want to face would come again. The lively and companionable things she liked would return to the original point, returning to being alone. I didn't mean that. Fang Yen said with infinite pity. We've known each other for so many years. I understand you, and you understand me. We understand a lot of things without saying it out loud. I hope I can live a better life, and I hope you can live a better life than me. Fang Yen, I know you don't mean that. I know you better than you know me. You are a kind person and a sincere person. You value relationships and don't want the people around you to be hurt. Lu Chaoga held Fang Yan's hand tightly, looked at him and said, You're right. This is the ending we have to face. There will always be a solution. Fang Yen said with a smile, If you don't want me to explain to my grandparents, then I won't explain. I think one day they will know the truth for themselves. What can you do? You have a girlfriend. You have to spend more time with her. You have to live with her. You have to take her to see all your relatives and friends. This is what a boyfriend or husband should do. Do we have to be together at that time? Do we have to live in the same house? Are you willing? Is your girlfriend willing? She's gentle. She's a very good person. If you get to know her, you'll definitely like her. Fang Yan, Lu Chaoga interrupted Fang Yan and said, don't recklessly use that woman's feelings for you just because she loves you. If she doesn't want to, but sacrifices herself for you, what will you do? If the two of us pretend to be stupid, will it be fair to her? Will she be happy? Will we be happy again? It started because of me, so it will end because of me, Lu Chaoga said. I won't let you live alone again, Fang Yan said with a determined expression. Lu Chaoga's lips curled up and she said, are you going to introduce a boyfriend to me? I don't like to hear you say that. Fang Yan smiled warmly and said, I won't say it. I'll wait for you to find him slowly. I can't find him. Why? There is a grave in my heart, burying the undead. Lu Chaoga looked out of the window and sighed. Fang Yan could only hold her hand tightly, trying to pass his strength and warmth to her. He could also say, be my woman. Or he could just hold her in his arms and kiss her lips. But, is this the best solution? How can he face Yiro? How can he face his own heart? How can he face Lu Chaoga? What a proud and dignified woman she was. When Fang Yan was sleeping, Lan Shanggu called. Fang Yan pressed the answer button and asked, what's up? Mr. Luqi left early this morning. She rejected everyone's gifts. Lan Shanggu yawned and said sadly, I was worried about Mr. Luqi's safety, so I didn't dare to leave the Blue Mountain Club. Thank you. Fang Yan said with a smile. You don't have to do this. Luqi likes peace and quiet. She doesn't want to be disturbed. You can go about your own business. You don't have to accompany her all the time. Even if a superstar comes, I don't have to accompany her. She's Luqi after all. Who asked her to be close to you and the woman? How can I not accompany her? Lan Shanggu said with a smile. I used your name to send gifts, but they were rejected by Mr. Luqi. I didn't keep a single one. These gifts are still in my treasure room. I have to get rid of them as soon as possible. Otherwise, the people who sent the gifts will think that Lan Shanggu deliberately took Mr. Luqi's gifts. What if someone comes to cause trouble? Fang Yan thought for a while and said, then I'll sell them in the Blue Mountain Club again. Lan Shanggu was overjoyed and said, okay, I'll tell them that they belong to Mr. Luqi. Those who want them can buy them. Or we can hold an auction. In that case, the rich people in Huaqing will fight to buy them. Fang Yan refused and said, there's no need to make such a big fuss. Luqi doesn't want to see herself become a tool for accumulating wealth. Just sell them at their proper value. Lan Shanggu agreed and asked with a bitter smile, what happens after I sell them? Where do I put the money? Those people won't agree to keep the money in my hands. Fang Yan thought for a while and said, donate the money to the Chaoyan Technology Charity Foundation in the name of Luqi. The Chaoyan Charity Foundation will give you a receipt and announce to the public how each sum of money is used. Because Lu Chaoga was an orphan herself, she could understand the loneliness of an orphan. When Chaoyan Technology was first established, she set up a charity foundation internally. Later, Chaoyan Technology grew rapidly and the funds that the foundation could control became larger and larger. The foundation was managed by herself and a few trusted people. They continuously donated schools, food, and clothes to children in poor areas. Lu Chaoga was very concerned about this matter, so she didn't have to worry that the money wouldn't be used for the children who really needed help. I know how to handle it, Lan Shanggu said with a smile. I'll tell them that you and Mr. Luqi have sent countless schools, books, and food to those children. I believe you can handle it. Fang Yan said with a smile. By the way, Chen Shui asked someone to call me yesterday to apologize. He hopes that we can forgive his recklessness and greed. I told him that psychological trauma can't be healed in a short time. It needs time and opportunity. Lan Shanggu said. Do you think that what I said is particularly philosophical? It's like writing a poem. Fang Yan got up from the bed, pushed open the floor-to-ceiling window and walked to the balcony. He breathed in the fresh air outside and said, "We're not punishing Chen Shuer, but the people behind him. If we easily forgive them, those people will feel that there's no cost to making a mistake. Driven by their interests, they will attack us again and again. I don't want to see such a situation." "I understand," Lan Shanggu said. "Before the matter is resolved, I'll cancel all the meals." Fang Yan smiled and said, "I'm afraid that I have a meal on my side that won't be easy to cancel." "Oh, I knew that there would be a lot of people looking for you," Lan Shanggu said with a smile. "You decide. If you say let go, I'll throw Chen Guijing out. If you say continue, I'll let Chen Guijing stay at my Blue Mountain Club for a few more days. I'll give him good food and drinks, and he won't have any objections." Chapter 641. After hanging up the phone, Fang Yan went back to his room and changed into his white sportswear, then went to the yard to exercise. This was a compulsory lesson for him every day. Qin Ying and Fang Yingying were fighting. Qin Ying was still not a match for Fang Yingying, who had been practicing internal martial arts for a long time. However, compared to himself in the past, Qin Ying's strength had greatly improved. Internal martial arts focused on qi, while external martial arts focused on strength and stamina. Qi could be regenerated endlessly, but once strength and stamina were used up, there would be no more. Therefore, most external martial arts experts were not a match for internal martial arts experts. However, if an external martial arts expert broke through the shackles and stepped into the ranks of internal martial arts experts, then his achievements would often be astonishing. Therefore, Fang Yan was looking forward to Qin Ying's performance. Whenever he had nothing to do, he would give him some pointers. Bang! Qin Ying's body was sent flying by Fang Yingying's rhino dash. His body staggered backwards, then he fell on his butt. Fang Yingying laughed proudly and said, "Little Yingying, what do you think? This move's strength is strong enough, right?" Qin Ying gasped for breath and looked at Fang Yingying in shock. He said, "What's going on? I've already locked onto your life gate and blocked off your attack route. Why aren't you affected at all?" "Little Yingying, you idiot, it's because you've been tricked by me," Fang Yingying said, twisting his big butt. In the past, he was forced to practice martial arts, but now he was the one forcing Qin Ying to practice martial arts. Every day, he would beat Qin Ying up for fun. "What do you mean?" Qin Ying was confused. "The life gate you saw was the life gate I let you see. The attack route that you blocked was the attack route that I wanted you to block. Everything else was a trap." Fang Yingxiong was a good teacher, so he explained to Qin Ying very proudly. Qin Ying thought about it seriously and said, "I still don't understand. Is that life gate the real life gate? Is that attack route the real attack route? Since it's all true, why is it a trap?" Fang Yingying was at a loss for words. He said perfunctorily, "This depends on your understanding, your personal understanding. It can't be explained clearly in a short time. You can slowly experience it." Fang Yan snickered in his heart. Fang Yingying had just touched the edge of seeing a mountain not as a mountain and seeing a river not as water, so there were many things that he could not explain clearly himself. Just like what Qin Ying had asked, the door of life was the door of life, and the route was the route. It was obviously locked and sealed, so why was it that he was deceived? Fang Yan walked in front of Fang Yingying and said with a smile, "Hero, use that rhinoceros charge again to attack me." Fang Yingying's expression changed greatly. He said, "Junior martial uncle, don't joke around so early in the morning." "I'm not joking with you," Fang Yan said. "Qin Ying still doesn't understand, you still don't understand. If the two of us demonstrate it, the two of you will have a clearer and more intuitive feeling. Maybe at that time, Qin Ying will understand, and you will also understand more and more." Fang Yingying shook his head and said, "The demonstration is fine, but can we change the person we're demonstrating to? For example, Qin Ying and I will perform again. I'll use rhinoceros charge to attack him, and you'll give us a live commentary. Another example, you and Qin Ying will do a demonstration, and I'll observe and try to improve myself. Qin Ing will be able to directly experience the wonders of breaking and resolving attacks during the demonstration with you. Qin Ing was shocked and quickly said, I don't know rhinoceros charge, you do it. Fang Ying, just the two of us, Fang Yan said in a strict tone. Use the rhinoceros charge that knocked Qin Ing down to hit me. I'll receive this attack. Junior martial uncle, are you really my martial uncle or not? Fang Ying wanted to cry, but had no tears and said, I'm fatter than you, but I'm not as good looking as you, why do you always see me as an eyesore? Fang Yan was amused by Fang Ying's tearful words, and said, I don't see you as an eyesore, I just want to help you see things a bit more clearly, come, or else I'll take the initiative to attack. Fang Ying quickly wiped the smile off his face, and got into a stance for rhinoceros charge. Fang Yingxiong was usually a cheeky person, but when it came to battle, he was very careful. Because his master, Mo Qingdi, had warned him not to get his head chopped off while laughing foolishly. If that happened, no one would praise his optimism, they would only lament his stupidity. Not to mention that his opponent was junior martial uncle, Fang Yan, a powerful opponent who could easily chop off his head in the middle of a battle. Before the person arrived, the murderous intent came first. Fang Yan could feel Fang Ying's fierce offensive. This kid was growing faster and faster. Perhaps, Mo Qingdi's departure and disappearance had left a deep scar in the hearts of these two brothers. After all, it was Mo Qingdi who brought them out from the beggars, and it was also Mo Qingdi who taught them martial arts, giving them a different kind of life. They had always regarded Mo Qingdi as their master and father. Their own master and father had disappeared as children, how could they not be worried? Fang Yan waved at Fang Ying and said, Come! Use all your strength. Roar! Fang Ying roared and then rushed towards Fang Yan's direction. Fang Yan lifted his right foot, and the tip of his foot drew a circle in the air on the grass. One hand was hidden behind his back, and the other was flat on his abdomen. Clang, 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 Fang Ying was like an enraged rhinoceros, charging towards Fang Yan's body, with great momentum and vigor. Moreover, when he bent his body and ran, his body also hid many changes. At any time, he could change his attack according to the target's reaction. Fang Yan's flat right hand suddenly blasted out, and grabbed the rhinoceros's vital horn, the top of Fang Ying's head. The circle-drawing foot moved forward and blocked all of his attack routes. This was the move Qin Ing used to block Fang Ying. Fang Yan's arm pulled back and then suddenly shook forward. Bang! Fang Ying was like a ball, sent flying by Fang Yan's palm. Bang! Bang! Fang Ying's body rolled all the way until he hit the corner of the backyard of the small courtyard. Fang Ying rubbed his aching head, crying and shouting, I knew it would be like this, I knew it would be like this. Qin Ing ran over to help Fang Ying up from the ground, and helped him pat the dust and grass off his body. Fang Yan chuckled as he looked at Qin Ing and Fang Yingxiong, asking, Do you understand now? Qin Ing nodded, saying, I think I understand a bit. Fang Ying wiped his tears, saying, I don't understand. I just knew that my body of over 100 pounds was going to fall apart. Fang Yan glanced at Fang Ying, saying, Wait until you can no longer feel the pain in your body, then you will truly understand. If you put it like that, Fang Ying was so angry that his liver was hurting, saying, How can I refute you? Fang Yan smiled, walking straight to the side to practice martial arts. He let Qin Ing and Fang Ying mumble to each other, not knowing what they were talking about. After Fang Yan finished practicing, he went back to his room to take a shower, changed into a set of dry clothes, and sat on the balcony to read a book. Today was Saturday, so he didn't have to go to school or work. Fang Yan could use this entire day to do things he liked. The sound of a car engine came from the entrance of the courtyard. Lu Chaoga's secretary, Meng Xiaoying, had come with a black van. Seeing her instructing the bodyguards to move boxes from the van to the courtyard, Fang Yan stood up and couldn't help but ask, Meng Xiaoying, what are you moving? Gifts, Meng Xiaoying said. What gifts? Aren't you going home? Meng Xiaoying stood in the grass in the courtyard, looking up to talk to Fang Yan on the balcony on the second floor. Yes, what's wrong? Fang Yan instantly understood, looking at Meng Xiaoying and asking, These are gifts you want me to bring back? Yes, Boss said you wanted to go home, so he gave me a shopping list. Meng Xiaoying said, our secretarial team of more than 10 people worked for 2 days before they finished buying it. Mr. Fong, do you want to check it first? Fong Yen sighed softly, saying, no need. He sat back on the recliner, but he had already lost the mood to read. At the dinner table, he mentioned that he wanted to go home to see his mother and grandfather for the next 2 days. At the time, Lu Chaoga didn't say anything, but she firmly remembered this sentence in her heart. She asked people to buy gifts that were piled up like a small mountain. How could he bring it back? A beauty's kindness is heavy. Zhujiang Bank, one of the most luxurious and famous villas in Huaqing. Su Qi's birthday party was being held here. Su Qi wore a white strapless gown, with a pair of silver high-heeled shoes on her feet. On her head was a beautiful crown made of more than 100 Swarovski crystals of different sizes. She was the well-deserved female lead of the night. She was like a princess in the crowd, and everywhere she went, there would be enthusiastic cheers and heartfelt praises. Su Qi, you look so beautiful tonight. Su Qi, you look like a princess. Su Qi, can we take a picture? Su Qi walked through the crowd of friends and relatives, chatting and smiling, satisfying everyone's various requests. When no one was paying attention, she quietly walked to the backyard, wanting to take a breath. This kind of occasion made people feel physically and mentally exhausted, but they couldn't show any trace of impatience. Everyone came for you, so what right do you have to be impatient? There's a heartbreaking sadness in your eyes, a man in a black suit said in a low voice as he walked out from a dark corner. Chapter 642. Su Qi turned around, looked at the man's smooth head, and said with a smile, Baldy, you're not suitable for this kind of fresh and clean path. The Baldy said helplessly, ugly people don't have a way to go. No path is suitable for them. You won't either. Su Qi patted his shoulder and comforted him, you can go the flirty route. You can't give others face, but you can give them warmth. There will always be a type that suits you. What is the flirty route? They are usually meticulous and considerate, able to take care of the family, and know how to cook. More importantly, they can understand and sympathize with other people's feelings, Su Qi explained. Baldy was so excited that he shouted, I have everything you said. I can cook, I take care of the family, I'm meticulous and considerate, and I can understand other people's feelings very well. When people reject me, I'm not angry at all, and I'll politely say it's okay. If I were a woman, I wouldn't like a man like me. So I'm the legendary flirty guy. I heard that girls nowadays like flirty guys. I'm not done yet. Su Qi interrupted Baldy and said, most of them are the slender and clean type. They dress comfortably and appropriately, and they won't appear too impetuous or exaggerated. They're like the sun, and they can give people a warm feeling. Baldy held his glass, turned around, and left. If I were to look like the sun, would I be afraid that there wouldn't be flowers and grass to nourish me? Hey, don't go, Su Qi shouted. Baldy turned around with a sad face and said, Missy, it's already very sad to look like this. Please don't discourage me. I didn't want to discourage you, Su Qi said with a smile. Then you still want me to be a flirty guy. Look at me, which girl will feel warm when they see me? At least they will feel safe, right? Who will find a safe man? Okay, let's change the topic. Su Qi smiled with her eyes squinted and said, Is Mr. Fong really not coming? Look, Mr. Fong is such an insecure man, but so many people like him. But those girls who like unsafe men are praising me for looking safe. What kind of mentality do you have to say such things? Su Qi was speechless. Baldy glanced at Su Qi and sighed softly. Mr. Fong probably won't come, right? He seldom attends student gatherings. So that's how it is. Su Qi sighed. I thought I was different from others. Pucci, Baldy laughed. What are you laughing at? All the girls think that they're different from the others. Baldy, do you want to die? All right, don't be angry. I'll send you another message to see if Mr. Fong can come. Why don't you just call them? That won't do. Baldy straightforwardly refused. Mr. Fong lives with our headmaster Lu. If I call him and Headmaster Lu hears it, Headmaster Lu will ask who called. He said that Baldy invited me to a student's birthday party. Do you think I, as the head of security, can sit still? You're so useless. A head of security can make you so nervous? If you help me invite Mr. Fong, I'll find you a better job. How about it? Baldy waved his hand. I won't do a better job. I like being the head of security. Why? When I was a child, my family was poor, so I didn't have the opportunity to study. So, when I grew up, I especially liked to be with those cultured people, Baldy said with a serious face. His eyes had something that moved people. Seeing those children carrying school bags and skipping in front of me, I feel very happy. This kind of feeling, tsk, I can't buy it no matter how much money you give me. Su Chi looked at him and said, Baldy, you're really a good person. A very good person. Baldy drank the wine in his glass and said in a low voice, a lot of girls say that. Su Chi was amused by Baldy's words and said, remember what you promised me. Don't worry. I'll send a message to Mr. Fong now, Baldy promised. But I can't guarantee that he will come out. Su Chi, someone in the room called Su Chi's name. Su Chi waved to the security trio of Baldy, Wang Chong, and Li Jun. She said, you three must eat and drink well, don't be polite with me, I'll go in for a while and come out soon. Baldy waved his hand and said, go ahead, don't worry about us. Wang Chong and Li Jun were already red in the face and couldn't speak clearly. Who asked them to discover that the wine provided by the owner was all good wine that they had never seen before, heard of, or even understood. Baldy picked up a bottle of whiskey and took a big gulp. He looked at Wang Chong and Li Jun with disgust and said, look at you two, burp. In the shadow under the eaves of the corridor, a young man saw this scene and quickly ran to the front yard. A group of young men and women came to the backyard, talking and laughing. When they saw Baldy, Wang Chong, and Li Jun lying on the ground and drinking, they all had disgusted expressions on their faces. A young man in a black suit and a bow tie walked over and kicked Baldy's butt. He asked, who are you? Baldy didn't like it when people kicked his butt. It made him feel like a naughty child. He didn't like to be someone else's child. Baldy stood up with the bottle in his hand, stared at the group of young people in front of him, and shouted, which school are you students from? Go to class, you're going to be late. His steps were unsteady, and he was already a bit drunk. When he saw these young people, he mistook them for students and habitually carried out his duty. Class? Did you hear that? He's telling us to go to class. Who is this guy? Is he a teacher from a school? Maybe, look at his hair, it's all gone. Being a teacher is really hard. These young people weren't afraid of Baldy's authority at all. They laughed and guessed Baldy's identity. The man with the bow tie looked at Baldy and asked, are you teachers from a school? Teachers from Rosefinch Secondary? Of course. Baldy struggled to open his eyes and looked at the young man in front of him and said, no. Then who are you? The man with the bow tie looked at Baldy and asked. We are Rosefinch Secondary Security, Baldy said with a proud face. I'm the head of security. Security? Everyone looked at each other and felt like they were struck by lightning. Why are these security guards here? Did they sneak in? They can't come in without an invitation. If they can come in, they must have been invited by Suki. Suki's brain isn't fried, right? Why would she invite a group of security guards? Even if she wanted to have a uniform party, there's no need to have a security uniform party, right? The man with the bow tie waved his hand to signal for everyone to be quiet. He smiled at Baldy and said, is there a student named Fong Yen in your school? Fong Yen? Baldy was stunned for a moment, then waved his hand and said, no, he's not a student. Then who is he? The man with the bow tie asked with a dark look. Baldy looked into the eyes of the man with the bow tie and couldn't help but shiver. He sensed danger from the man's eyes. Stimulated by this strong sense of danger, he also sobered up. Why do you want to know about Fong Yen? I'm just curious, the man with the bow tie said. Tell me how about it. If he's not a student, then who is he? I can't tell you, Baldy said. Why not? The man with the bow tie asked strangely. Because I'm worried that you'll hurt him, Baldy said. I see a murderous glint in your eyes. The man with the bow tie squinted his eyes and smiled. Why would we? We just want to be friends with him. No, you're not. Baldy waved his hand. I've seen many people, you're not, sincerely looking to be friends. The man with the bow tie picked up a beer bottle from the ground, looked at the English words on it, and said, Then tell me, how should I be friends? Smile. A smile that comes from the bottom of my heart. I'm willing to be friends with Fang Yen because he smiles at me like this. When he smiles at me, I feel like we've known each other for years. That's why I let him use the small boat that's under the watch of the security office, and even agreed to be his boatman. I guessed right, he really is a friend of a friend. You don't think my smile is good? The man with the bow tie looked up at Baldy and asked with a smile. It's not that your smile is bad, it's that your smile is terrible. What kind of friend would make people scared when they smile? Baldy said with a sincere expression. Hey Baldy, what are you talking about? Someone behind the man with the bow tie was unhappy. That's right, where did this little tramp come from? He's so ugly, seriously affects my appetite. The man with the bow tie waved his hand again, stopping everyone from attacking Baldy. He took out his wallet from his pocket and handed the stack of bills to Baldy, saying, As long as you give me an answer, this money is all yours. Baldy waved his hand and said, I can't do that. Also, let bygones be bygones. What bygones? You said that I don't smile well. Hey, I thought it was something serious. Then why did you call me a little tramp and say that I'm ugly? I wasn't angry either, right? That's just lip service. You can't take it seriously. So you don't want to help me with this little favor? It's not that I don't want to help, it's that I can't. Fang Yen is my friend, my brother. How could I betray him? You really are ugly. The man with the bow tie looked at Baldy's drunken face and said. As he spoke, he raised the bottle in his hand and smashed it at Baldy's head. Crack! The bottle broke. Chapter 643. Southerners liked the view of the river. In their view, water represented gold. If they lived along the river, they would naturally make a fortune. The Pearl River side occupied the entrance of the Pearl River, and every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. Those who could live here were not simple people. I don't know if Baldy and the others came. If they found out that Su Chi was holding a birthday party here, they would probably be scared to the point of wetting their pants. Thinking of Baldy and the others' surprised expression, Fang Yen couldn't help but grin. With such a group of funny friends around him, his life was full of lively and joyful elements. Fang Yen handed the invitation to the security booth. After the security verified the authenticity of the invitation, he saluted the car respectfully and opened the door to let them pass. Driving in the middle of the spacious driveway of the villa community, Fang Yen was not surprised at all. He had long guessed that Su Chi's background was not simple, and the subsequent events had verified his guess again and again. According to the roadside signs, Fang Yen found Su Chi's home without a hitch. Her home was really too easy to find, because the third house at the mouth of the river was where she lived. Therefore, the address on the invitation was written, Pearl Riverside 003 building. Fang Yen parked the car in the spacious parking lot at the door and then walked toward the villa's small courtyard. Sir, please show me your invitation. The old butler at the door performed his duty dutifully. Okay. Fang Yen handed over the invitation in his hand. Mr. Fang, a surprised voice came over. Fang Yen looked up and saw Su Chi, who was wearing a white dress and a diamond crown on her head, quickly coming in his direction. The old butler bowed slightly to Fang Yen and said with a smile, It seems that there is no need to verify it. Indeed. Fang Yen liked this polite and humorous little old man very much, so he said with a smile. Su Chi walked quickly to Fang Yen and said happily, Mr. Fang, I have been worried that you would not come. If that was the case, I would be too disappointed. I was worried that the Birthday Star Guild would be disappointed, so I came, Fang Yen said with a smile. He handed over the gift box in his hand and said, You look very beautiful today. Thank you, Mr. Fang. Su Chi took the gift and said, "I've already said that you coming is the best gift I've ever received." Fang Yen made a shushing gesture and said, "Keep your voice down, or the other guests won't know if they should take out their gifts." Understood. Su Chi blinked and said to the housekeeper beside her, "Uncle Fu, don't tell anyone what I said. Otherwise, huh?" "Miss, what were you talking about?" "I'm deaf, so I can't hear you," the butler said with a smile. The three of them laughed. Su Chi stepped forward and held onto Fang Yan's arm. She said, "Mr. Fang, let me introduce some friends to you." Fang Yan nodded and said, "Are Baldy and the others here?" "Yes, they're drinking in the backyard." Su Chi said, "They're not used to the atmosphere in the front, so I let them enjoy the food and wine in the backyard. To be honest, I like the backyard too. It's quiet and comfortable there. Even the air in my lungs feels fresher." "Then I'll go to the backyard later," Fang Yan said. "But you're the birthday star today, so you're the focus of everyone's attention. You can't leave the guests and go to the backyard by yourself. Sigh, I'm so pitiful." Seeing the little princess walk in with a man's arm, many people in the hall cast surprised looks at them. "Is that Su Chi's boyfriend? He looks quite handsome. The little princess of the Mei family has quite good taste. Is she an adult? Old Su, a hairy son-in-law, is here today, but isn't it a little too early for him to be here?" In the middle of the living room stood an elegant middle-aged man in a white shirt. He looked at Fang Yen and Su Chi, who were walking side by side intimately, and raised his eyebrows imperceptibly. A beautiful woman in a light red cheongsam stood beside him. Seeing the man's unhappy expression, she said in a sweet voice, "Old Su, you feel uncomfortable seeing your precious daughter being intimate with another man? It's said that daughters are their father's lovers in their previous lives. This is indeed true." "Nonsense," the middle-aged man said in a low voice. "How old is Chi-Chi? She's only in middle school, but she's already brought her boyfriend home. Is this proper?" The woman held the man's arm and said, "Now that you're a father, you know how to blame your daughter? When you kidnapped me, we weren't even in high school yet, right? How old was I then? My dad said the same thing about you, and you weren't convinced. How can it be the same thing?" The man said impatiently, "Do you know who that kid is? Didn't Su Chi bring him here? Why don't you just ask him yourself later?" The woman said. As the two of them were talking, Su Chi had already walked up to them while holding Fang Yan's hand. Su Chi looked at the middle-aged man and said to Fang Yen, "Fang Yen, this is my father, Su Boya." Fang Yen took the initiative to extend his hand to Su Boya and said with a smile, "Mr. Su, nice to meet you. You have a smart daughter." Although Su Boya didn't like Fang Yen, his good character prevented him from easily showing his emotions. Therefore, when Fang Yen extended his hand, he still very gracefully extended his hand to shake Fang Yan's. It was a very perfunctory handshake. Su Chi then pointed at the beautiful woman in the cheongsam and said, "This is my mother, Mei Xinjian." "Madam Mei, nice to meet you." Fang Yen extended his hand to Mei Xinjian again and said, "Your daughter is as beautiful as you." Mei Xinjian gave a refreshing smile and said, "Thank you, you really know how to talk." Su Chi pointed at Fang Yen and said, "This is our school's teacher, Fang Yen." "Teacher?" Su Boya and Mei Xinjian looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. They knew that Rosefinch Secondary School rules were extremely strict. Teachers and students were definitely not allowed to fall in love. Su Chi looked at her parents' expressions and asked with a smile, "You two seem to be very worried? Could it be that you think I'm bringing my boyfriend back to see you?" Su Boya glared at Su Chi and said, "Su Chi, don't joke with the teacher like this." Su Boya took the initiative to extend his hand to Fang Yen, and his attitude suddenly became much more amiable and warm. He said with a beaming face, "Mr. Fang, welcome to Su Chi's birthday party." Fortunately, Su Chi is a sensible child and knows to invite the teacher. Otherwise, it would be a dereliction of our duty as parents. Fang Yen shook hands with Su Boya again and said, "Mr. Su, you're treating me like an outsider. I'm also very happy to be able to attend Su Chi's birthday party." Mei Xinjian looked at his daughter thoughtfully and said, Su Chi, you have to take care of Mr. Fong. Don't be impolite. Mom, don't worry. I definitely won't let Mr. Fong be thirsty or hungry, Su Chi said with a smile. She once again extended her hand to hold Fong Yan's arm. Fong Yan felt a little uncomfortable and wanted to avoid it, but he was worried that he would hurt her pride in front of Su Chi's parents. Su Chi, let's not, Fong Yan said in a low voice. How about this? You're my teacher and my elder. This is a very normal etiquette. Mr. Fong, you aren't thinking the wrong thing, are you? Su Chi's gentle voice spoke into Fong Yan's ear. Fong Yan tried to avoid it once, but after failing he didn't try again. Wouldn't it be more suspicious if he made too big of a move in front of Su Chi's parents? Looking at Fong Yan and Su Chi's departing figures, Su Boya said with a smile, it was a false alarm. So it's Su Chi's teacher. Su Chi looks gentle on the surface, but she's proud and aloof. She usually wouldn't take the initiative to bring strangers home. Today, she took the initiative to invite Mr. Fong to her birthday party, which proves that this Mr. Fong is very capable. I'm afraid it's not just a teacher-student relationship, right? Mei Xinjian sized up Fong Yan's back with a sharp gaze and said, when did you ever see your daughter take the initiative to hold another man's arm? Other than you? Su Boya's expression, which had just relaxed, froze again. Su Chi took out 2 glasses of iced gold wine and handed one to Fong Yan while holding the other herself. Mr. Fong, thank you for coming to my birthday party. Su Chi raised the wine glass in the air and said, I'm really, really happy. Come, let me offer you a toast. Fong Yan raised his glass and clinked it with hers, saying, I just wanted to ask for a drink. Then I'll accompany you for a few drinks today, Su Chi said with a smile as she finished the gold wine in her glass in one gulp. Looks like you can hold your liquor well. Fong Yan also finished the gold wine in his glass in one gulp. He looked at Su Chi and asked, Where's my friend you said you wanted to see? Su Chi looked around and said, I didn't see him either. I don't know where he went to study earthworms. Mr. Fong, shall we have another drink? Fong Yan drank 2 more glasses with Su Chi. In the process, people kept coming to talk to Su Chi and propose toasts. Fong Yan looked at Su Chi and said, Su Chi, I saw a lot of people looking for you. Go do what you need to do. I'll go talk to Baldy and the others for a while. All right. They're in the backyard. Mr. Fong, I'll go find you in a bit. Fong Yan had just walked to the backyard when he saw the bowtie man throw the wine bottle at Baldy. The wine bottle broke. Baldy's head was also bleeding. Baldy's body spun twice on the spot before falling to the ground with a bang. The bowtie man threw the wine bottle in his hand onto the grass and said with a face full of sarcasm, a little security guard, I didn't expect him to be so loyal. Little security guards are not only loyal. Fong Yan walked towards Baldy step by step and said with a hint of anger in his voice, they're also willing to stand up for their brother. Chapter 644. Baldy was innocent. The person L.V. Kailuan really hated was Fong Yan. L.V. Kailuan's father, L.V. Zhonghong, and Su Chi's father, Su Boya, had been close friends for many years and were also business partners. Because their fathers were very close, Su Chi and L.V. Kailuan had known each other since they were very young. They played together, studied together, and traveled together. The two of them could be said to be childhood sweethearts. When they were young, the adults of the two families had more than once said that the two of them should be engaged. The speaker had no intention, but the listener had other thoughts. L.V. Kailuan liked Su Chi, but he had never expressed it. However, he knew that Su Chi must belong to him, just as he felt that he also belonged to Su Chi. Su Chi was still too young. He wanted to give her more time, to let her get more freedom. He thought that Su Chi should understand his thoughts. When she was tired of playing and had enough, she would return to his embrace. At that time, everything would be logical, and they would naturally walk into the palace of marriage hand in hand. They would love each other for a lifetime and become the only one for each other. L.V. Kailuan imagined their future to be extremely beautiful. He felt that he was a very open-minded and magnanimous man. If it was any other man, How could he allow the girl he liked to play around in this world of sensual pleasures? It was not until Li Mingming ran over and said that he had a rival in love and that Su Qi might have fallen in love with a man named Fang Yan that Wang Kailuan realized that things seemed to have changed. Su Qi, perhaps, really didn't belong to him anymore. Even if she didn't belong to him, she couldn't belong to anyone else. This was also the reason why he brought a group of people to tease Baldy and wanted to find out information about Fang Yan from him. It was just that the little security guard really didn't know what was good for him. After being tempted by money, he still remained unmoved, which stimulated the hostility in his bones. Knocking down a little security guard was a very shameful thing for him. Because of the difference in status, he didn't feel any sense of accomplishment from this victory. Instead, he felt that hitting someone in front of his friends had damaged the refined image that he had always maintained. Seeing that Baldy was knocked down with a wine bottle, Wang Chang and Li Jun sobered up and strode toward the direction where Baldy was lying. Director, are you all right? It's bleeding, hurry up and stop the bleeding. Wang Chang took off his suit and pressed the fabric of his shirt against the wound on Baldy's head. Li Jun screamed in a hoarse voice, hurry up and save them. Who can help save them? Fang Yan walked to Baldy and squatted down. He opened Wang Chang's suit and reached out to touch the wound on Baldy's head. He said, don't worry, it'll be fine. As he spoke, he took out a small brown bottle from his pocket. He uncorked the bottle and poured most of the contents over Baldy's head, smoothing it over evenly with his finger. Baldy had no hair, so he avoided a lot of unnecessary steps. Then, something strange happened. The mint-flavored medicine mixed with the blood on Baldy's head and turned into a muddy paste. The mushy substance was a natural hemostatic membrane. The bleeding had stopped. Fang Yan picked up Wang Chang's suit and wiped the blood on his hands. You two take care of him, Fang Yan said. Mr. Fang, Wang Chang said with a sad face. They hit people for no reason. Fang Yan nodded and said, I know. Fang Yan got up and walked step by step toward where LV Kailuan was standing. Since Fang Yan appeared, LV Kailuan's eyes had been on Fang Yan. At first, he didn't know Fang Yan's identity. It wasn't until the little security guard called him Mr. Fang that LV Kailuan realized that this guy was the Fang Yan that he wanted to know. Another little security guard? LV Kailuan thought indignantly in his heart. He didn't like his opponent or love rival to be a security guard. If that happened, he felt that his style would be dragged down countless times. It would be such a shameful thing if this spread out. Competing with a security guard for a woman, even if he won. Where was the fun in it? Fang Yan walked toward LV Kailuan step by step. His footsteps were heavy, and each step was stepping on the hearts of everyone present. Bang, bang, bang. Intentionally or unintentionally, everyone was calculating Fang Yan's steps in their hearts. He didn't have the intention to stop, as if he wanted to confront LV Kailuan face to face. LV Kailuan's pupils contracted slightly. He felt the invisible pressure brought by Fang Yan. He felt that each step was like knocking on his heart. His body was slightly trembling, and his calves were inadvertently shaking. He wanted to retreat, he wanted to run away. However, he couldn't do that. He was LV Kailuan, a high and mighty young master. He couldn't be scared away by a little security guard. Close. Infinitely close. Fang Yan walked in front of LV Kailuan. His eyes looked at LV Kailuan's eyes, and his chin was about to touch LV Kailuan's nose. As long as he pouted, it was possible for him to kiss LV Kailuan's hair. Because of his height advantage, he looked very aggressive. Fang Yan could hear LV Kailuan's rapid breathing, and he could feel his fierce heartbeat. He knew that he was afraid, and he knew his emotions well. LV Kailuan opened his mouth to say something harsh, but found that he didn't have that kind of courage at all. He didn't know why, but his pride, his self-esteem, and the arrogance and hostility in his heart all disappeared in front of this man. He knew that Fang Yan and Baldy, who was knocked down by him with a bottle, were companions, teachers, or security guards. He wouldn't care about such identities. However, he was afraid of him. LV Kailuan swallowed his saliva and said with a trembling voice, "What do you want to do?" "Do what you just did to my friend." Fang Yen said. LV Kailuan turned and ran. He didn't want to be hit in the head by the bottle. He didn't know why, but when this man said these threatening words in front of him, he believed that he could do it. Fang Yen didn't chase after him, but with a flick of his foot, an empty bottle flew into the air. When the wine bottle fell to a certain height, Fang Yen leaped up and kicked out with his leg. Bang! Fang Yen was like a superb football player, and the bottle became the football that the player kicked out. Without any suspense, the football hit the target, LV Kailuan's head. Crack! The bottle made a crisp cracking sound. LV Kailuan's body rushed forward a few steps, and then fell to the ground with a plop. Ah! A girl's scream was heard. Someone come, murder, murder, security, security. Su Kailuan was injured. Hearing the crying outside, the people in the villa were alarmed and one by one, they all ran out. A middle-aged woman in a black dress saw LV Kailuan lying on the ground, and with a scream, she rushed toward LV Kailuan with large strides. Kailuan, Kailuan, what's wrong with you? Heavens, there's blood. As the host of today's banquet, Su Boya hurriedly gave an order when he saw an injured person appear in the courtyard. He said, quickly send Kailuan to the hospital. There's a private hospital nearby. A few bodyguards in black rushed over, nimbly lifted LV Kailuan, and ran outside. The middle-aged woman grabbed Su Boya's arm and said, Su Boya, you have to give me an explanation. After saying that, she ran outside with her son, who was being carried away. Without waiting for Su Boya to ask, someone explained the situation to him. Uncle, he was the one who injured Brother Kailuan. He threw a bottle at Brother Kailuan's head. The slightly plump Lu Zhonghong stared at Fang Yen with an unfriendly gaze and said, Boya, is this also your guest? Su Boya knew that his old friend was on the verge of exploding and said, Zhonghong, don't be angry. Let's first clarify the situation. How exactly can we clarify the situation? Lu Zhonghong said bluntly, they've already said it very clearly. This wretched tramp injured Kailuan, and he used a bottle to smash Kailuan's head. Look at the bottle dregs on the ground, even the bottle was smashed by him. How ruthless must he be? Su Boya was also very angry that something like this had happened. However, this was a teacher brought by his daughter, so he had to at least maintain the appropriate etiquette. Su Boya looked at Fang Yen and said, Mr. Fang, what's going on? Did you really use a beer bottle to injure someone? Fang Yen nodded and said, yes. That person just now, his name is Lu Kailuan? I was indeed the one who injured him. Mr. Fang, no matter how good Su Boya's temper was, he couldn't hold it in anymore. How could you injure someone? You're a teacher. Do you understand the meaning of being a teacher? I understand, Fang Yen said. But I also hope that you can understand the meaning of another phrase, equality of all living things. Fang Yen pointed at the unconscious Baldy on the ground and said, when you were rushing to send Lu Kailuan to the hospital, did you notice that there was another injured person lying here? Just like how you only saw Lu Kailuan being injured by a beer bottle, why didn't you see that there was another person injured by a beer bottle here? Was it just because the former was the son of a tycoon, and the latter was just a security guard? If you hadn't provoked him, how could he have been injured? Lu Zhonghong was burning with anger. He pointed at Fang Yen and shouted, what? You're beating people up with reason? He turned to stare at Su Boya and said, Old Su, don't blame me for not giving you face. I don't care what your relationship with this bastard is. If he doesn't give me an explanation today, he can forget about leaving this courtyard. Chapter 645. In the eyes of parents, their own children were always the best. LV Zhonghong was certain that Lu Kailuan was the one being bullied. He was knocked down by those vulgar security guards using some dirty tricks. His son had received a high-quality education and had gone through strict aristocratic etiquette training. How high could the quality of a security guard be? Beating someone up without saying a word, wasn't that something they would do? His own son being knocked out with a wine bottle was something unbearable to LV Zhonghong. Who wouldn't have a temper when they were rich and had a good background? Thus, after LV Zhonghong threatened Su Boya not to lend a hand, he shouted loudly, Men, Beat this brat up until even his own mother can't recognize him. Pay him back double for how he treated Karen. Clang, clang, clang. Two burly men dressed in black walked out from the crowd and strode in the direction of Fang Yan. Tonight's birthday girl, Su Qi, was in the inner room dealing with the praises of a few elders. When she heard the screams outside, she quickly ran out. When she came out, she happened to see LV Zhonghong instructing the bodyguards to teach Fang Yan a lesson. Uncle LV, Uncle LV. Su Qi lifted her skirt and quickly ran in front of Fang Yan. She used her frail body to shield Fang Yan and looked at LV Zhonghong with a pleading expression, saying, Uncle LV, is there a misunderstanding? He's my teacher, how could you let someone hit him? LV Zhonghong's expression was slightly kinder when he faced Su Qi because he knew that her father was Su Boya, but her mother was Mei Xinjian. His voice was still filled with anger as he said, Teacher? Just because a teacher is a teacher, he can casually hit someone? Even if a teacher hits someone in school, it's considered corporal punishment. I can sue him. If a teacher hits someone outside the school, he's a hooligan, a wretched scoundrel. He even dared to hit someone with a wine bottle. Which school's teacher would dare to do such a thing? What kind of teacher is such a person? He's nothing more than a bandit. Su Qi turned around to look at Fang Yan and said, Uncle Lu, Mr. Fang wouldn't hit someone for no reason, right? In between, Su Qi, what do you mean? LV Zhonghong's anger flared up again. He wouldn't hit someone for no reason. In other words, Karen deserved to be beaten up? Does he deserve to be smashed in the head with a wine bottle? Uncle Lu, that's not what I meant. I just hope that everyone can calm down and analyze the truth together. In the face of LV Zhonghong's aggressive attack, Su Qi was still calm. He looked at LV Zhonghong with spirited eyes and said with a sincere expression. Seeing his beloved daughter speak up for Fang Yan, Su Boya had no choice but to step forward to calm things down. He looked at LV Zhonghong and said, Old LV, don't be rash. Why don't you just listen to the person in question? We're not people who can't tell right from wrong. Just be quiet. You want to talk about it? Old Su, it's easy for you to say. My son was beaten until he fainted. What else can he say? What can he say? The person in question is still fine, but I won't listen to what he has to say. Su Boya pointed at the young people in the courtyard and said, Aren't they standing together with Karen? Why don't we just listen to what they have to say? Su Boya turned around and swept a glance at the young people. He said, You must tell the truth. Don't be biased or hide anything. Su Qi turned to look at Fang Yan and said, Mr. Fang, tell us the situation first. Fang Yan nodded and pointed at Baldy, who was lying on the ground. He said, When I came, I saw Karen use a wine bottle to smash my friend to the ground. So, I used the same method to knock him to the ground. Those who humiliate others will be humiliated by others. Those who hit others should naturally be beaten back. You bastard! What LV Zhonghong couldn't stand the most was Fang Yan acting high and mighty, as if he was in the right and was trying to reason with him. Su Boya stared at a weak-looking young man and shouted, Su Li, why did Karen hit someone with a wine bottle? Because. Su Li carefully glanced at the young people around him. He didn't dare to answer his uncle's question. Su Li, tell the truth. Don't let others influence you, Su Boya shouted sternly. Because Karen was jealous, Su Li said softly. Karen heard that Su Qi had a good relationship with a guy with the surname Fang, so she ran over to ask the bodyguard who the person with the surname Fang was. The bodyguard refused to say, so Karen, Su Qi looked at Baldy guiltily. She didn't expect that the matter had started because of her. She knew how Karen felt about her, and she had always treated Karen as a very good friend because they had grown up together. However, that was all. How could friendship replace love? Someone must have overheard the conversation between her and Baldy in the backyard, and then Lu Kailuan came to cause trouble for Baldy. Lu Kailuan knocked Baldy down with a wine bottle, and teacher Fang Yan knocked Lu Kailuan down with a wine bottle. So Karen used a wine bottle to smash someone's head in a fit of rage? Su Boya asked coldly. Su Boya turned to look at LV Zhonghong and said, Old Lu, look at your good son. Children can't be spoiled. Karen was the one who attacked first, so she was in the wrong first. Old Su, are you kidding me? It was my son who was injured. How can the life of a small security guard be compared to my son's life? Su Boya frowned slightly and said, Old Su, what you said is very wrong. Just now, Mr. Fong said that all living beings are equal. Whether it was Karen or the injured security guard, they were raised by their parents. Compared to their parents and relatives, they were all living beings. In your eyes, Karen's life is naturally the most important. In the hearts of his parents and children, that little security guard's life is above everything else. It's all life, so how can there be a difference in status? Old Su, who are you speaking for? LV Zhonghong was rather dissatisfied with Su Boya's attitude. I'm not helping anyone. I'm reasoning with you, Su Boya said. Old Lu, we've known each other for many years. You should know my character. I think you were too rash in this matter. This matter is clearly Karen's fault. If you let someone beat up Mr. Fong, that would be adding to your mistake. Then my son was beaten up for nothing? Su Boya pointed at Baldy, who was in Wang Chang's arms, and said, What about him? What did he do wrong? He was beaten up by Karen to this state? At the end of the day, this matter is Karen's fault. Zhonghong, you are Karen's elder. You should stand up and take responsibility for this matter for Karen. Don't let others laugh at us for not being broad-minded, and even more so, don't let others insult us for using our power to bully others. Fang Yen stared at Su Boya with a burning gaze. At this moment, he had a whole new level of respect for this man. To be able to choose justice in the face of friendship and justice, how rare was such a person? What a joke! My son was beaten up. As his father, not only did I not get justice for him, but I also have to apologize to the person who beat him up? LV Zhonghong clearly found it hard to accept Su Boya's solution. He stared fiercely at Fang Yen and said, Why don't I let someone beat him up first before apologizing to him? LV Zhonghong, Su Boya is doing this for your own good. The enchanting and sexy Mei Xinjian stood beside LV Zhonghong and said, You don't even know who he is? And you want to beat him up? If you can even touch a finger of his tonight, I, Mei Xinjian, will write my name backwards. If you don't believe me, you can try. Hearing Mei Xinjian's threat, LV Zhonghong was slightly shocked. You don't even know who he is? Isn't he Su Qi's teacher? Could it be that he has a hidden identity? If you can even touch a finger of his, I, Mei Xinjian, will write my name backwards. In Mei Xinjian's eyes, I'm no match for this young man. LV Zhonghong and Su Boya Mei Xinjian had been husband and wife for many years. Although Mei Xinjian's style of speaking was sharp and direct, she never lied. Even she could not help but give him such an obvious reminder. Did that mean that he was indeed no match for that young man? LV Zhonghong's expression was gloomy. After hesitating for a long time, he sighed deeply and said, I didn't expect Karen to do such a thing. I, LV Zhonghong, did not teach my son well. LV Zhonghong walked in front of Baldy and said to Wang Chang, Quickly send him to the hospital for treatment. I'll bear all the expenses. I'll send my secretary with you to make some arrangements. When he wakes up, I'll visit him at the hospital and discuss the matter of compensation with him. What do you think of this? Wang Chang looked at Fang Yen. He could not make the decision for such a big matter. Fang Yen nodded. He looked at LV Zhonghong and said, Mr. LV, you're a role model for us. I'll agree on behalf of my friend. LV Zhonghong did not like Fang Yen, the culprit who injured his son. He had no interest in talking to him. After giving some instructions to the secretary beside him, the secretary, Wang Chang, and Li Jun carried Baldy outside to send him to the hospital for examination and treatment. After sending the patient away, LV Zhonghong turned and walked outside. Su Boya shouted, Old LV, Old LV. LV Zhonghong did not turn his head and said, Old Su, I'll come drink with you another day. Su Boya sighed softly. He glanced at his daughter, Su Qi, and said, Take good care of Mr. Fong. Good job. Su Qi gave her father a thumbs up. In her heart, her father was the most just and great man in the world. Silly girl. Su Boya shook his head with a bitter smile. He held his wife, Mei Xinjian's hand and prepared to return to the house. Boring. It's really boring. A lazy voice came over. Everyone looked over and saw a handsome and flawless man walking toward the crowd under the moonlight. Countless people exclaimed in surprise. Chapter 646. He had a beautiful appearance and a pure and innocent personality. He had a sweet smile and beautiful eyes. There was a word used to describe this kind of man: gorgeous man. This was the most handsome man Fang Yan had ever seen, except for himself. Even if he was a woman, he was definitely one in a million. This man was so beautiful that when he appeared bathed in the moonlight, both men and women were dazzled. The reaction of the young girls was even more direct. They could not help but scream out loud. It was as if they had welcomed their idol. "Oh my God, it's Mei Xue. It's really Mei Xue. He's really handsome. I like him so much. I haven't seen him in a long time. I didn't expect him to appear at Chi-Chi's birthday party. Chi-Chi is so lucky." The most low-profile and high-profile of the four prodigies of Huaqing, Mei Xue. There were too many rumors about this man, so many that even if he did not appear in public all year round, news about him could continuously reach the ears of the public. For example, Mei Xue went to learn how to paint. His painting Spring Walk was sold at Sotheby's London auction for tens of millions. Mei Xue went to study how insects lay eggs. His thesis was praised by the world's entomologist, Fabre. Mei Xue went to study perfume. The perfume he created attracted the attention of countless socialites. To put it simply, this was a rich, talented, and willful guy. Hearing these rumors, Fang Yan felt that Mei Xue was like the protagonist of a web novel. He was omnipotent and capable of everything. There was a small group of people in this world who were so talented that they could overturn the entire world if they were not careful. Mei Xue ignored the shouts of the girls and walked straight to Su Boya and Mei Xinjian. He looked at Su Boya with a smile and said, "Brother-in-law, I've troubled you again today." Su Boya looked at Mei Xue with a smile. It seemed that his brother-in-law liked this brother-in-law very much. He said, "Xue, why are you here? I didn't hear that you would come." He paused and asked, "What did you trouble me with this time?" Mei Xue did not answer his question. He looked at Mei Xinjian and said, "You can ask my sister. You are a learned man. Don't waste your time and pollute your ears with such filthy things." Mei Xinjian looked at his brother Mei Xue dotingly and said with a charming smile, "You love your brother-in-law. You don't want him to waste time and dirty his ears. Aren't you afraid that your sister will waste time and dirty her ears?" Mei Xue's smile gave people a sense of elegance. She said, "Sister, you're a heroine of the business world. You're much better at killing enemies than my brother-in-law." "You sure know how to talk," Mei Xinjian said with a smile. "I've invited him for you, but I don't know if he'll give face to a weirdo like you." Mei Xue nodded and walked to Su Qi. She took out a jade pendant and hung it around Su Qi's neck. "Don't you like this? I'm giving it to you. Treat it well." The jade pendant was dark green in color and carved into the shape of a koi. Under the moonlight, the green carp was like a living creature, as if it could spit out air bubbles one after another when it opened its mouth. Su Qi's face was full of surprise. She carefully stroked the emerald koi on her chest and said, "I asked you for it before, but you didn't want to give it to me. Why are you giving it to me now? How old were you when you asked me for it? You were 8 or 9 years old. I didn't dare to give it to you. I don't care about its value, but I care about the meaning of its existence. I like it, so I want it to exist in good condition. Today is your birthday. I'm giving it to you. I hope you can understand that some things are broken. They can't be put back together. So, I hope you can cherish every choice you make like you cherish this koi. Happy birthday." Su Qi hugged Mei Xue and said, "Thank you, uncle. I hope you'll look better." Mei Xue smiled. He didn't feel embarrassed because of the little girl's praise. He said calmly, "I'll try my best not to let you down." The girls screamed again. It was as if Mei Xue hugged them too. Mei Xue let go of Su Qi and said, I want to talk to Mr. Fong. Su Qi nodded and smiled. It took me a lot of effort to invite Mr. Fong to my birthday party. Don't make him angry. Mei Yingxue caressed the crown on Su Qi's head and said, I won't. I'm just afraid that he'll make me angry. Mei Yingxue walked towards Fang Yen and extended his hand. He smiled and said, Mr. Fong, I've heard so much about you. I hope you don't mind that I asked Su Qi to invite the guest on my behalf. After all, taking the initiative to look for him would only make him feel shameless. It would be best if he could have an artificial chance encounter here. Please forgive me for being a little selfish. But everyone was in an uproar. They didn't expect Mei Yingxue, one of the 4 prodigies of Huaqing, to take the initiative to greet a teacher. Moreover, from Mei Yingxue's words, Fang Yen came because Mei Yingxue asked Su Qi to invite him. Among the 4 prodigies, Mei Yingxue was the most mysterious and the most arrogant. He didn't care about ordinary people. He didn't care about ordinary people either. Some people said that Mei Yingxue's eyes were straight because he only paid attention to what he wanted. Other people or things meant nothing to him. However, such a person with straight eyes actually took the initiative to walk towards Fang Yen. What did this mean? Who the hell is this guy? Why does young master Mei give him so much face? That's right. I've never seen Mei Yingxue take the initiative to shake hands with someone. Luckily LV Zhonghong didn't use force. Otherwise, Fang Yen held Mei Yingxue's hand and said with a smile, Su Qi didn't tell me that young master Mei is treating. Oh, is that so? Mei Yingxue looked at Su Qi in surprise and said with a smile, Qi is an independent person. It's hard to change her mind once she decides on something. She always thinks that socializing is a very boring thing. She also thinks that disputes in social occasions are even more boring. There's not much meaning in who bullied who and who was bullied by who. It's just something to chew on when some bored people drink tea and drink wine. Because the painting in my hand was lacking the final stroke, I came a little late. I saw the end of the farce just now. Mr. Fong must feel that it's very boring, right? It's quite boring. Fang Yen nodded. He heard that Mei Yingxue's catchphrase was boring. It was said that in his eyes, there wasn't much that was interesting in this world. But I had to do it. What a good, had to do it. Mei Yingxue laughed heartily. It had to be said that this guy was really good-looking when he laughed. Even a 100% straight man like Fang Yen wanted to look at him a few more times. The eyes of the women and young girls at the scene lit up. Some people even took out their phones to take pictures of him. This was really a world that valued appearance. Some people were born with the halo of a star. During the Wei and Jin dynasties, Wei Jie, a handsome man from the Western Jin dynasty, was surrounded by people everywhere because of his outstanding appearance. In the end, he died of illness due to the psychological pressure. At that time, people said that he was stared to death. Fang Yen only hoped that the killing of Wei Jie would not happen again. It's just like how I don't like to see you, but I have to do it, Mei Yingxue said. I'm curious. Su Qi didn't mention the identity of the person who invited her. Why would Mr. Fong give her face? Originally I refused, Fang Yen said. But I thought, what if I get an unexpected reward? Then you think this trip will be worthwhile? Whether it's worthwhile or not depends on young Master Mei's sincerity, Fang Yen said with a smile. The corners of his lips curled up slightly. He wanted to smile prettier than Mei Yingxue. However, his efforts were in vain. No one was looking at him. Those people kept staring at Mei Yingxue, pointing at him and pressing the shutter button on their phones to take pictures. It was as if Fang Yen was invisible. Am I no longer an idol? A terrifying thought surfaced in Fang Yan's mind. Mei Yingxue looked around and said, How about we find a quiet place to have a drink? A guest will do as the host pleases, Fang Yen said. Hearing that Mei Yingxue wanted to talk to Fang Yen in private, Su Boya took the initiative to greet them. He said, Let's go, everyone. Let's go inside and drink some tea. We still have to cut the cake later. Under Su Boya's lead, most of the people gathered in the backyard went back. Although the young women were unwilling, they were too embarrassed to stay there and be light bulbs, so they reluctantly followed them into the house. Su Qi looked at Fang Yan worriedly and said, "Mr. Fang, I'll come find you later." Fang Yan nodded and said with a smile, "Don't worry, it'll be fine." Mei Xue looked at Su Qi with a smile and said, "Don't worry. I can't beat him." "Uncle, you're so annoying," Su Qi said coquettishly and ran inside with a red face. Mei Xue looked at Su Qi's receding figure and said, "Don't you feel that these little girls' relationships are meaningless?" "How do you know?" "I've experienced too much," Mei Xue said calmly. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.